I'll roll it right now. Stand by. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This broadcast takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. And so we have a couple of people that have sponsored the event. We're going to show you, you can see it right there on the screen right now, Veterans Day sale with the flag shirt. Please do get some amazing garments for yourself. And a little bit more about the flag shirt with this special word here.
What defines the American spirit? Preserving life, liberty, and pursuing happiness. Caring for the nation we call home and its people. As patriots, it's our duty to drive the entrepreneurial spirit, pushing hard, reaching for success, sharing patriotism, because the American way of life is for all to live. The flag shirt, where freedom reigns.
So please make sure you get a gift for yourself and someone in your life. Take advantage of this 10% sale from the flag shirt. And we got another minute or so before General Flynn opens us up. So I'm going to give you another.
Hello, I'm Steve Stern, CEO of Flagshirt.com, a third-generation, veteran-owned small business. I believe that the American way of life is for all of us. I'm asking you today to visit Flagshirt.com. Help keep the American dream alive. Be a flag waver. Carry a nation's heritage. Use coupon code ACTION10 for 10% off site-wide and buy a flag shirt today. Action, action, action. We have about 2 minutes, Raj. Anything you want to put in there before we start? Now, the reason we wait to do it exactly at 2, we have 92 podcasters streaming this live, so it doesn't come live till 2 o'clock.
Excellent. So, friends, as we are getting ready, General Flynn will be coming on in exactly 120 seconds. We're going to start on time. So while you are waiting, please go to the flagshirt.com. The other sponsor for this event is Defend Your Voice, defendyourvoice.com. Please check them out. They have an app that you can use for after the election. Likely there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of everything. And so the defendyourvoice.com has an app that you can use to bring clarity to what has happened and do it in a credible way. So visit defendyourvoice.com and check out their app as well. Also coming up soon that you'll be hearing more of, especially after next week, is what do leaders need to be saying to people to prep them for the commotion that's coming up next week? In particular, what do pastors need to be saying? Otherwise, the people that are going to be hijacking the conversation is going to be your news agencies, that are actually propaganda machines, or social media, equally worse. So we need to prep leaders, grassroots leaders, influencers, and especially pastors on what they need to be saying so that what happens after the elections is handled in a productive way. And one of the steps, and we're going to stop right now, you'll have more tips on later on, but one of the steps is make sure you go to Unite for Freedom, and make sure that everyone you know is filling out a complaint form documenting any shenanigans that they may have. Steve Stern, it is now exactly 2 o'clock. Anything you want to say before we bring General Flynn on?
So we want to thank our 92 podcasters. We're going to have another one of these in 2 weeks. We're going to have over 100. We are streaming all over Europe, Canada, Mexico, many countries through our streamers. And that is unbelievable. And we expect between 1 million and 2 million people to be seeing this. It will be continued to be streamed tomorrow again because some of the people are going to stream it twice. So we want to introduce General Flynn, who is the Patriot of the Year. I know that he has never stopped. He always says yes. And we want to just say that he has done more for this country, I think, than anybody else, maybe President Trump. But General Flynn is a hero to everybody that's on this call. General Flynn, we welcome you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Steve. And Raj, appreciate the the setup here. Steve, I really just want to first say thank you very much for just being such a resilient patriot, being so persistent, and on what you've been doing for the last couple of years. Frankly, I mean, your calls, your organizational abilities to be able to get everybody focused, driven, put the right levels of energy into everything that you've done. Has been nothing short of a miracle. So, here we are, folks. Right, this is Wednesday, I guess. I did just get back from another trip out west to California, Kansas, and Missouri, and before that was in North Carolina for a bit for our last Reawaken America event of 2024. And I also spent about the better part of 3 days up in the mountains of North Carolina with basically doing an assessment of the situation up there. And I will continue to remind people, at least Americans that are here, but I also met some Canadian volunteers that showed up. So anybody that wishes to volunteer, there's still a great need for volunteers to help out the tragedy that we experienced in the mountains of North Carolina from Hurricane Helene. It is. We will discover that it is worse than the attacks of 9/11. That's the levels of missing and those that are missing and dead, counted among the dead now up there. It's really bad, and it's going to only get worse in terms of the winter months coming. So I just add that in as a sidebar, but it's a really important one for me because I have been helping get relief supplies up there, and I just felt compelled to go there physically, and I did. And what I saw was something out of the, it was biblical proportions, and I've never seen anything like that on all the battlefields that I have been on around the world. So let me put that to the side. It is not a sidebar issue for me. It's a very important issue for taking care of this country and the people of this country. I think that what we are about to walk into in these next few days, these last few days prior to the most historically consequential election that we will ever experience or have ever experienced, in the nation's history, clearly. And this is unlike, even the Revolutionary days, the Civil War days, or anything that we experienced over the last century with a couple of major wars and other conflicts that we were involved in. We're walking into a vote, a presidential election, and it's one of the most uncertain times I think we've ever faced. And certainly there is a lack of trust between we the people and the government that is supposed to serve us and supposed to actually work towards protecting the safety and security of every American. In fact, we have a government right now that seems to be doing just the opposite, especially allowing this illegal invasion. We did have a good Supreme Court ruling today. And what's fascinating is that there were 3 Supreme Court justices that apparently dissented on that favorable ruling about essentially keeping illegals off the voter rolls, right? I mean, not allowing illegals to vote in our country, which really starts with the state of Virginia, and then of course the DOJ sued the state of Virginia to keep them on the rolls. Virginia was tough enough to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won. And it was fast tracked because we're coming into an election where the outcome of that decision matters not only for the state of Virginia, but matters for many other states in the country. So anyway, the other thing that's just breaking, it's breaking for probably most of the people that are on this call. Apparently, some ESPN through ABC, NASCAR race, and I don't know all the details of it, so I'm throwing some things out there that I don't have all the details. The one detail that I do have is that apparently ABC is showing a victory already in the state of Pennsylvania of 52% for Kamala and 47% for President Trump in the state of Pennsylvania. And apparently that got reported somehow today by ABC, and everybody's wondering on social media whether this is, it's clearly disinformation, ABC, but everybody's wondering, was this a test? I mean, what the hell is going on? So that's happening as I speak. It is breaking on the certainly on the internet, and thank God we have X as a platform of speech. Most of you folks on here don't know, but in the last week, I have been banned again from Facebook and Instagram. So that's a big platform. Those are big platforms for me. And I don't, put anything out other than articles that I write or statements that I make about different things. And of course, they ban me. So right prior to the election. So is that considered election interference? Probably not by any court, but from, you know, the court of public opinion, it's clearly election interference, you know, to ban a guy like me from two major platforms. And of course, they're owned by the same organization. So we're in a time where we have a lot of uncertainty because we have a lot of disinformation, and the disinformation, much of it, I actually think, comes out of our own damn government right now. I mean, the way that they're putting information out, nobody can believe them. You know, the percentages of people in this country that believe that our elections are free and fair or transparent, you know, that number has skyrocketed in terms, you know, it's like 70, maybe close to 80% of the people that don't trust it, you know. So I voted today. I got my little button on, this little button I'm wearing. I did an early voting in Florida today. Myself and my nephew and my wife, we went and voted, and we did it. You know, the people there that were very professional. We went to a library here close by, and everybody there was professional. We had the ballots. We stuck them into the machines after we filled them out and filled out all the ovals and all that sort of stuff. So this particular year, I worked at the primaries. I'm not going to be able to work at the polls this year just because of the dynamics of what are happening. So what, right? So what to everything that I've said? At this stage, you know, I've been talking for a better part of 3 years about local action having a national impact, or local action equaling a national impact. Steve Stern has been, you know, he's been really Mr. Precinct, right? Mr. Precinct, and getting people out to, you know, to get involved at the precinct level, which you can't get any more local than that. And I think because we're so close into the 5th of November, you know, it's actually in God's hands right now. I mean, you know, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you the things that you need to do, you know, volunteering or voting. I mean, you know, I think the majority of people for this presidential election in our country have already made their decisions for the most part, and have already done everything that they're planning on doing or they're ready to do to support the elections on the 5th. I do believe that if this nation, this presidential election does not have greater than 70% registered legal voter turnout, greater than 70%, that's low. I would love to see us at about 80 to 85% turnout. But if we don't have greater than 70% turnout, we're in big trouble. We are in big trouble. We cannot have, like we've averaged over the last, you know, 4 or 5 presidential elections, general elections for president of the United States, we've averaged around 65% voter turnout. That's unsatisfactory. That's not going to work. And that means that 35% of voters who are registered don't go out and vote. So we have got to get, you know, if there's anything that people can do, is to encourage people who are still on the fence about voting. I don't care what they're on the fence about. You know, I hope that they are on the fence about, you know, what the left is doing to the country, or not on the fence about what the left is doing to the country. I hope they're, you know, hope they see it for what it is. They're destroying this country intentionally, and that people want to make America great again. We are in a really, really tough spot. And I mean, we have crime rates, we have economic tailspins going, you know, taking us into the ground. We have debt beyond all, you know, anything that's ever been seen in the history of the world when it comes to national debt. We have a military that is not ready to fight and win our nation's wars. We have drug problems all across the country. We have, you know, external enemies in China and Russia. Iran is another, North Korea is another, Venezuela is another, but particularly the Chinese. We have the Chinese infiltrated all throughout our government. It is undeniable now how much the Chinese have entered the institutions and the seats of power in the United States of America, and it's just a shame. So those are just the things that those are just a few of the things, but those are some of the things that we need to be aware of in order to be able to say, look, folks, we have got to get this country back on the rails, because right now we're off the rails. We are off the rails. We are not on the edge of the abyss. We are in the abyss. And until we get great leaders back in charge of our country, and that's at all levels, that includes governors, That includes taking the Senate, winning the Senate, the down ballot voting, right? The House, some of our governors in the states that are up for election, even state legislatures. We've got to keep state legislatures conservative and Republican so we can maintain, a nation that we're proud of. We can maintain a constitutional republic. The left, this progressive left, really does want to change our Constitution. They want to change our Bill of Rights. They want to change the makeup of the Supreme Court. I mean, I wrote an article about maybe a month ago, and it's on. People can go to generalflynn.com and read it about the top 10 things that Kamala Harris has actually said she plans on doing if she becomes president. So it's not me making this stuff up. It's things that she has said. So people need to go and read that so they understand clearly what we're up against. And last thing I'd say, Stephen, I'll turn it back to you. I so deeply appreciate, and I know there's a lot of people that have podcasts and there's others on here that are activists that are involved. I so deeply appreciate everybody that has decided that I'm going to do more, for my country than I ever decided that I was ever going to do. I'm going to do more. I'm going to either become a citizen journalist or a citizen soldier, a digital soldier, and I'm going to get out on the airwaves and I'm going to talk to 10 or 10,000 or 10 million, but I'm going to get out there and I'm going to talk about the kinds of things that I believe we need to talk about, and I'm going to build on this idea that we're Americans. We have free speech. We have the ability to be able to say the kinds of things that we want to say. That it doesn't necessarily. It's not the shouting fire in a movie theater type speech. It's talking about how we can be a great country again, because right now we are not. We have beautiful people, we have beautiful geography, but we have a mess, and it starts from the top. Starts from right at the top. When you have Uncle Joe Biden calling us all garbage, right? I mean, just unbelievable. So the new costume, the costume that's flying off the shelves from stores now is these 60-pound bag, these garbage bags that people are wearing. I posted one this morning. So I want to thank everybody, every single one of you, for doing what you're doing, for getting out there, getting your voices heard. For those people that are involved at the precinct or county or even state level, those people that are maybe involved at the federal level that are working to get the right people back into the political office, the political lifeblood of our country. I want to thank each and every one of you. And I'll go back to you, Steve, and say to you again, thank you for becoming an integral part of this country's fabric as patriotic fabric. And I really am deeply appreciative of our personal friendship and our personal relationship. And just want to say thank you for all that you do. So, Steve, I'll stop there and throw it back to you.
Well, I got a few questions if you got a few minutes.
I do.
First thing is, I heard yesterday that it takes 6 months for a veteran to get seen at the Veterans Administration. Now, you as a veteran, I as a veteran, why aren't the veterans stepping up? You and I talked about all the generals in the country and how, they send letters, but they don't step up like you. And I know you got a lot of friends that you probably talked to about that. Yeah. So how are we going to get the veterans to step up? Because if they step up, how many veterans are there out there?
Yeah, I don't know on this, but we probably have, we have north of 20 million veterans who are capable of voting in this country. If veterans get out in droves and in high numbers, vote for DJT there, this is a no-brainer. This is going to be, he'll do in 50 states.
So the other thing is, people want to know about your organizations and how they can get involved with you, because you're out there so much, and I know you don't have a lot of help. I know you have your great secretary there. We want to, if she's around, we want her to say hello. I told her she could come on and say hello, because she has to deflect a lot of people for you, and she has to get you on a lot of places. And it's great that you have somebody like that. So how do people get in touch with you? How do people go to your organizations? Because you're doing so much for this country. And I know you don't get as much as you get out. You don't get out as much on TV as you should. Yeah,
so people can go to, generalflynn.com is kind of my main website. one of the emails that we do maintain, and we use it quite often, is questions@generalflynn.com, questions@generalflynn.com. And so if people sent a question or a comment or an attachment, whatever you're going to do, questions@generalflynn.com is a great way to communicate with me and my team. And you're right about Melissa. Ashton is the other great member of our team here that, they're with me every day and answering 1,000 questions. But if people want to send in questions or comments, I have given my number out to a lot of these people. There's a lot of podcasters out there that have direct contact with me. I probably go through 300 or 400 text messages a day, never mind the emails. So, but if people want to generally know what I'm doing, like, this, I just came back from California, Kansas, Missouri. I mentioned North Carolina. I'm actually going to be home at a big church in the local area here. We have about 20 churches that the pastor reached out to, and that'll be this Sunday night. And forgive me, I don't even know the name of the church that I'm going to be at, but it's right down the road here. It's a big one here in this area, and there's 20 churches that have grouped together. And I know it's to Florida, but we're getting close at this point, and I'm going to really stay very laser focused on this situation in North Carolina. It's so bad, Steve. Having been physically on the ground and done my own reconnaissance and my own assessment, I just can't. People cannot imagine the devastation that happened there, unless, of course, you've been through a massive hurricane or a tornado here in Florida recently. We had, I don't know how many, 100, 120 tornadoes, and we lost some lives here in Florida. So people in Florida know what devastation means, but people in the mountains, they did not. They never been through anything like this, so they weren't prepared. There was no warning. A 80-foot wall of water, like a tidal wave, came down from the mountains and just basically destroyed a couple of towns along its path. Destroyed people, at home that night, and now many of them are missing because they got buried by mud. So I'm keeping half my brain and focused on that, because these are Americans who have been injured, and the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States, neither one of them, Biden or Harris, has showed up to any place up there to go check on it. I mean, it's just such a tragedy. And so anyway, generalflynn.com is a great way for the veterans who are paying attention and on this. That's one of the things that we need to, when we say make America great again, the Veterans Administration can do a better job, a much better job. And to get people to care. The one thing that people complain to me, the vets complain to me all the time about, and I go through the same process. I don't try to call them up and go, I'm General so-and-so. They know who I am. But the administrative process to get to where veterans actually get care is so bureaucratic and so filled with nothing but nonsense. And that bureaucracy has to be, I'm not going to say streamlined, much of it has to be gutted. And there's some rot. There's rot in that administrative process that has to be removed, just like, removing some type of, malignant or benign cancer on a person's body. We've got to remove some of this stuff. And that's, the Veterans Administration is one segment of the rest of the government that has to be reformed. There has to be reform. And if there's one area that I'm hopeful to be part of, but the most important thing that we have to do right now is we've got to win. Everybody can talk about what somebody's going to do in the future and all these people that are out there, but we've got to talk about winning, and we got to win first, and then we can make bigger and better decisions.
Thank you very much, General Flynn. It's been a pleasure as usual. And hopefully nothing happened to your house. I know you were right in direct contact with the last hurricane. It went over your house. So thank God everything's safe. And if you will go into the chat, I see a lot of chat coming in and asking you questions and everything. Maybe you could answer some of those. And we appreciate you coming and taking the time to be on here. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Steve. I really do appreciate it. And God bless you for everything that you're doing.
You got it. Marley Hornick, you're up.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, General Flynn, for all that very uplifting and powerful messaging. And at United Sovereign Americans, we totally agree that everyone needs to vote But what I do want to talk about today is some breaking news, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to basically try to frame how this is unfolding. Because one of the studies that United Sovereign Americans has already completed is happening in real time, and I want to help everyone understand what we do know and what we don't know, and what steps United Sovereign Americans is taking right now to try to address these problems as best as anyone could. So I'm going to flip back to some of our work that many of you have seen. If you've followed United Sovereign Americans at all, you know that we have been studying statewide voter registration lists and the voter participation histories. We've actually measured these issues in 21 states, but right now we're looking at a slide that shows just 7 of them: California, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Georgia. And California, Illinois, New York, and Pennsylvania are the 4 worst states in the country, according to our measurements. And that's not on an aggregate basis, that's on a percentage basis. So normalizing our studies across states per citizen, the worst case signs of election fraud that we're seeing are in those states. And that they cover 168 electoral college votes. And I'm just going to bump this down a tiny bit, hopefully. Oops, it was more than I wanted. Let me see if I can just scroll it a little bit. Here we go. For those 7 states, what we discovered in their voter registration lists was 23 million facially invalid registrants. Just quickly, I'm going to go over it. These are people who are, for example, registered to vote before they're born. Their name is asterisk or, ..7 Sam. So they have unusual non-alpha characters in their name. Their names have been altered. Or, for example, they registered to vote after having voted, sometimes in multiple federal elections. These unique registrants cast 7 million votes in the 2022 midterm. And these states also counted 1.4 million more votes statewide than any voter is associated with having voted. So there's like 1.4 million votes counted with no associated voter whatsoever. This is an 18% error rate in the vote count, in the counting of ballots. So why do I bring this up? We've talked about this before on this call. This is evidence of a federal crime. The crime is called certification of a false tally. And election officials have been put into federal prison, and this has been upheld. These decisions have been upheld by the United States Supreme Court on multiple occasions, including US v. Classic in 1941, in Ray Coy in 1888, and Anderson v. US in 1973. Election officials have gone to federal prison for certification of a false tally. In all 3 of those cases, the number of ballots at hand was restricted to either a single polling site or a single race. So I want you to understand why the evidence that United Sovereign Americans has measured and gathered constitutes forensic evidence, not just things to shout and scream about, as much as we all need those also. And there is a lot of reason to be frustrated. Now I want to go to our next study, which we just released on X on Saturday, this particular information. You can go to our X thread. It's at United S American to read the entire thing in context. It's a really, really important thread. I recommend everyone take the time and read it. The study you're looking at right here is a study that United Sovereign Americans did, again, as forensic auditors. We were looking for further evidence that we had proven certification of a false tally. So it's almost like you're watching a baseball replay, right? And you're over home plate and you've got one camera, you're looking at the ball, you're trying to figure out, was it a ball or a strike? So you got one camera angle over here. Now we're going to pivot to another camera angle. Okay, so what we did with this study was we did a prevalence study. When the National Institute of Health is trying to figure out how many people actually got sick from a disease or how effective a medicine was, this is the methodology they use to do that. When they're determining the safety and efficacy of a vaccine before releasing it for public use, this is the same process and methodology they use. So this is a federally accepted method that is evidence in court. What we did was we took a sampling of all the voters who voted across those 7 states I highlighted, and we operated with a database that is used by law enforcement and collection agencies to locate people in space and time precisely. And what we discovered was that, and you can see that at the top right here, in Pennsylvania in the 2022 midterm, 477,721 voters can't be found in that database. They do not appear to exist for any all intents and purposes. They can't be found by law enforcement or collections agencies. 342,000 voters from Pennsylvania in the 2022 midterm voted from an address that either the address doesn't exist, the voter was never associated with the address, or they were not associated with the address at the time of the election, and we put a year-long envelope around the date of the election. So we were very, very generous in our decision about whether or not the address was valid at the time of the election. As you can see, what we uncovered was a huge amount of election fraud. Now, the question is not whether this represents a false tally. The question you might be asking is, well, did the election officials know? Well, it doesn't matter if they knew because it's a false tally. When you have 2.1 million people who voted that cannot be found by law enforcement or collection agencies, 4.8 million more that do not tie back to the address their vote was cast from, and then there's your 1.5 million votes that don't have any voter associated with them whatsoever, you have 8.5 million illegal votes, period. End of story. And someone certified that as accurate. So if we can find out as citizen investigators using publicly available information in the voter registration records, we didn't look at anything other than what's public. If we can figure out that these people don't exist, how come the election officials who are tasked under the United States Constitution with verifying the authenticity of every one of their voters, how come they couldn't figure it out? So that's the next camera angle, all right? Certification of a false tally. Remember that. Now I'm going to go to the last study, and then I'm going to talk about this breaking news. Our vote washing report. So what vote washing is when you're using these electronic systems, oh boy, it's going to be hard to read. Let me try to make it bigger again because that wasn't helpful. I know y'all are trying to read this. Yeah, there we go. That's good. So when you're trying to inject votes and registrations and you're dealing with this gigantic pile, right? 23 million deadwood records, 7 million, potentially illegal fraudulent votes that the states have never answered for. And we have provided them with every single one of those records as extracted from their own official data, which is a federal record of a federal election. What I'm showing you here is that they tampered with it. Okay. So they certify an election, and then all of a sudden, the voters start changing. And what you're seeing here, this is again the 2022 election in California. Here on the top row, you're seeing that 282,000 voters were injected into the California voter rolls and post-dated with a 2022 vote. They didn't exist in the data when the 2022 midterm was certified. They're added later, and their vote is post-dated, which we can tell because we're running what we call horizontal analysis. We're looking at multiple copies of the statewide list, and we're inspecting it row by row across time. We also had 366,000 people who did vote and were certified as having voted in that election who are deleted. Okay. And this is going on across all these states, right? So you see, you know, New York, you got 59,000 people who didn't vote at the time the election was certified. They're injected later and their vote is post-dated. Now I want to show you the 2020 election, and I want to talk about New York again one more time. And I know I'm a little tiny bit biased as a New Yorker, but it is pretty darn stunning what the state of New York did. And so I'm going to highlight this row here, New York. Oops, I can't highlight it. Oh, well. So on October 21st, 2021, there were 109 people who double voted in the 2020 election in the New York State voter registration list. So we're talking about 2020. Now, then New York Citizens Audit figures all this stuff out, gets a big microphone and starts shouting all over New York State about how they have 338,000 more votes counted than voters who voted. In the summer of 2023, the state of New York added 250,000 double votes to individual voters who had voted once previously in the record. This is vote washing. This is editing a federal record after it's certified. So this is called the cleanup job, right? And the cover up is always worse than the crime. Now, what I want to talk about is something that's happening right now. Matt DePerno has already started tweeting about it. I think Liz Harrington is about to start tweeting about it. We're about to put out a press release on this because I want everyone to understand what the meaning of what we're finding is. United Sovereign Americans, as well as many other qualified forensic auditors that we're in touch with in the country, we are now tracking vote washing, not over time. So what you saw in that chart was people querying the voter rolls over like a 6-month gap twice, right? So we query them at certification, then we look at them 6 months later, and now we're looking at them today. Now we're looking at them hourly. Okay. Yesterday in the state of Michigan, 144,000 double votes were registered in the early voting records. Now, if you followed United Sovereign Americans during the August primary in Michigan, you know we found 6,126, I think was the number of double votes. At the time we started tracking it, boom, we captured that. And then we started putting out press releases about it. And then what happens? Dana Nessel charges 3 of her county officials with fraud. Actually, she charged them. So they're not taking responsibility at the state, but they acknowledge that this is starting to happen. So now, yesterday, we capture 144,000 double votes registered into the vote tallies for the state of Michigan early voting 2024 election, because we're looking at it with like razor resolution. The other thing we're tracking is we're watching Texas, and we are finding thousands of issues there again with double voting. We found a voter yesterday, because we're tracking it hourly. He cast 71 votes. And at the end of the day, how many votes did he cast? 1. So they're just like I'm telling you, they're entering these in. Voters are entering in, they're getting added with a vote, then they're deleted. Then they run them back through again, the same voter. Then they delete the voter, move the vote somewhere else. This is like a money laundering operation. It's if you can picture how a money laundering operation works, right? You want to get a payment to an NGO in, like, I don't know, Georgia. Let's just pick on Georgia for whatever reason, right? So you make a payment over in the Cayman Islands to, an anonymous bank account. They make a payment to an anonymous bank account in Taiwan. That money then moves over to, Britain, and then Britain, whoever is in Britain, they're like, oh, we want to make a donation to this NGO, right? So this is how this is operating, because you can never track that back. It's too complicated after a certain point. You can't track it back to the source. What we're seeing, and this is what I want everyone to understand, how to think about this. And if you're going to go out there on social media and talk about this, you need to understand what we do know and what we don't know. We know that there is a marauder inside the system. We know that, and we're measuring it, and United Sovereign Americans is on the horn with 3 constitutional expert attorneys in this country, and we are preparing 3 lawsuits right now. I want you to know that. Don't feel hopeless. We have forensic evidence. Other people are giving us forensic evidence. Our attorneys are brilliant. They have massive Supreme Court victories under their belts already. Feel good. Pray and feel good. What we know is there's a marauder in the system. What we don't know, this is what we do not know. We don't know who it is, and we don't know why they're there. Hear me say that again. We do not know who it is, and we do not know why they are there. This is a total loss of control breach. That's true. When you have a total loss of control breach, what you're saying is someone is driving this car and we don't know who it is yet. And we don't know why they're driving it, and we don't know where we're headed.
1
So
minute. 1 minute.
it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that the election is being stolen. That may not be what this is about. And I'm not trying to sound stupid, but there are information operations that have a secondary purpose, like to drive you crazy or to make people say dumb things. So I want you to know what you can say is there's a marauder in the system. United Sovereign Americans and other forensic auditors are tracking this marauder. We don't know who it is. We don't know why they're operating, and they're going to file lawsuits. And if you can support those lawsuits, I'm a volunteer, Harry's a volunteer. Some of our attorneys right now are getting paid. Others are stepping in, and they don't know if they're ever going to get paid, but they're stepping in to help. Please go to uniteforfreedom.com. If this information is helpful to you and you want to make sure you support those lawsuits, go to uniteforfreedom.com and just throw us whatever you can. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Steve, for the time. And
Check
I
in
really,
the chat also. People are asking questions and they want some information. What you presented, they want to know what the solutions are. So you'll see that in there. And we'll have this
Sure.
again in 2 weeks and we'll grab you back on. Hopefully we win the election. Thank you
Sure.
very much.
Let me tell you, let me just say one
Go ahead.
last thing, Steve, about that. These are emergency injunctive lawsuits. These are not lawsuits that get adjudicated over time. These will be heard as soon as they're filed. They could be heard in hours. So I want everyone to understand we're talking about emergency injunctive relief based on forensic evidence, not assertions, not jumping up and down and yelling, but disciplined evidence created by forensic auditors.
Thank you very much. Our next
Thank you.
guest up is Dan Schultz. Dan
And
Schultz,
right-
Precinct
Right,
Strategy.
and right before Dan Schultz comes, one other thing, I just want to emphasize again, this is Marley Hornick's website, or Unite for Freedom's website. This button here is something that is now before the elections and after, they absolutely need you to fill this out. This is the way that you capture information at the local level, which is critical for the effectiveness of the legal work they are doing. So please make sure you book that and click that button and share that with the people in your lives. So thank you for that, Marley. And going over to Dan Schultz. Dan, you're up, sir.
Thanks, Raj. Is it okay if I share my screen and use some PowerPoints?
Absolutely.
Slides?
Please go.
All right,
Please go
let's see if it'll work here. Let's see. Is that the one I want? No, this is the one I want. Okay, share. Okay, and then let's see.
And we can see your PowerPoint.
Okay, all right, great. So I'm gonna try not to be duplicative of the prior speakers. I like what General Flint said, but I think what we really have to do, all of us, we've got to get united. We got to get organized and united politically in the best place and the best way possible. And I've been preaching this since 2009 after I became a PC and we elected Barry Soetoro as our president, a confirmed Marxist. We got to get organized and united politically in the best way possible. No matter what else you're doing, there's another thing you've got to do. You got to get united with locally where you live in the best way possible in your local Republican Party committee. But first step is pray. So this is my 3-step strategy to restore America. pray. I recommend start with 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Then step 2 is recruit precinct committee. And then step 3 is repeat steps 1 and 2. Pray, recruit, repeat. So this pie chart hasn't changed since 2009. It was like this from 2008 all the way up to today. This is the Republican Party. There's about 100,000 conservatives in it, about 100,000 moderates, rhinos, and 200,000 vacancies. So whose fault is it that it hasn't been filled up? It's the fault of Trump supporters. They don't want to become precinct committeemen for some reason. So I did a podcast way back on November 18th, the day that Donald Trump announced he was running. And he said 2 things. At the beginning, he said, it's my campaign. I'm announcing my campaign, but it's really our campaign. And then at the end, he said, we will win, but we need every patriot on board. We never have enough poll workers. We never have enough poll observers. And as I just showed you, we do not have enough precinct committee. Somebody talked in the chat about percentage of turnout, and General Flynn did. In my precinct in 2020, because we had all of our precinct committeeman slots filled and all of them were America Firsters, and we knew how to do this stuff, and I explained it in a video on my site, how to boost turnout of the lower information, lower propensity voters, we got over 90% of Republicans to vote, but the average was only 72%. So thankfully, Donald Trump, with Steve's help, Steve Stern's help, Mike Lindell's help, Steve Bannon's help, Liz Harrington's help, we got Donald Trump to endorse the precinct committeeman strategy way back on February 27th of 2022. Unfortunately, I can't get him to recruit, and I don't know why. So a friend of mine created this meme. He wants us to become precinct committeemen, but he doesn't talk about it. I wish he would. My goal is to get, if we're going to fix things, we got to get every precinct committeeman slot in the Republican Party filled by a Trump supporter, hopefully recruited by President Trump. He has the wherewithal to do this recruiting. I don't know why he doesn't do it. I imagine it's because of some of his advisors. And there's only one way to change the RNC. It's through the precinct committeeman strategy, because precinct committeemen elect everybody in the party. They elect the electors of the state chairs who serve on the RNC. They elect the electors of the national committeemen and the national committee women every 4 years. Those are the state convention delegates. Precinct committeemen elect all of those people. So this is what my website looks like. All of those are buttons you can press. I try to make it really simple. There's a communications and collaboration platform. You can get the election integrity app, Votify Now. That's the second button. And then all of my past daily podcasts, like later today, I'm going to do a podcast. I always try to pick an educational topic and keep it short about basic American civics, because I was lucky. I got it in 7th grade, way back in 68 and 69. But most people have never been taught civics. So here's the latest videos page. I am with Steve Bannon. You can watch that if you want. The one in the lower left-hand corner is a podcast I did. It's about 11 minutes. And it's telling Donald Trump, it's not too late. This was in January of 2020. It's not too late, candidate Trump, for you, President Trump, for you to fill up all these vacant precinct committeeman slots. But he didn't do it, unfortunately. And there in the lower left, this is the how-to videos page, is a 15-minute narrated PowerPoint where I explain how easy it is using the software tools that the party gives us to boost turnout like we did in my precinct. And I give a few examples. This is the communications and collaboration platform that Robert Beadle's built for us. The first button at my website. There's 16,619 people on it only. I wanted to get 300,000 on it. Didn't succeed. And then the people who are on it, they're just not using it as well as they could. You can set up private chat rooms, public chat rooms. It's a terrific site. You can share documents. You can do whatever you want. It's very much like Telegram. So this is the difference between the GOP.com website, that's the RNC's website, and mine. Why and how to become a PC is explained at my site, but at the RNC's website, go look. There's nothing there about becoming a precinct committee. And how to find your local committee, there's nothing at the GOP.com website, but there is at my site, obviously. And then they don't give us an online communications and collaboration platform. The DNC gives it one to the Democrats, but why doesn't the RNC give us a communications and collaboration platform like the one Robert Beadle's built for us? Because they don't want us communicating easily with one another. So God bless Raj and Steve and the others who put together this kind of a way to communicate and collaborate. And I want you to get the Votify Now app. It is the only election integrity reporting app that exists. It's an app. It's on your phone. So if you see somebody taking photos at a Dropbox, you can take video, stuffing a Dropbox, you can take a photo of the person and you can shoot video and then shoot it to Votify Now, but then also you've got to report it to your sheriff and your district attorney and to the election officials in wherever you are. But get Votify Now. I have it on my phone. So again, here's on the left, current party strength. It hasn't changed, but look what happens if we filled up all those vacancies. Now we got a 75% voting majority, a party that's twice as strong. And where are we going to get those people? And these graphics are on my website.
2
Where are we
minutes.
going to get them? Thanks. We're going to get them from Trump supporters. Okay. Everybody's got to unite, no matter what your issue is. Remember what I said? Let's say that your issue is the Second Amendment. You got a Second Amendment hat on. Take that one off, and then once a month, put on your precinct committeeman hat and go to your local Republican committee meeting and take your Second Amendment issue into your local Republican Party. Get united so we elect better school boards and mayors and city council members. It needs to look like this moving forward. We have to have a line out the door of conservatives month after month filling up these vacancies. And again, every precinct committeeman slot in the Republican Party has to get filled by a Trump supporter. And I wish President Trump would recruit. So now what do you got to do? You got to get involved with TrumpForce47.com to help get out the vote. I'm doing that. I'm also going to be a poll observer through ProtectTheVote.com here in Wisconsin, where I am now. And this is what TrumpForce47.com is doing. They're going after the lower information, lower propensity voters. And if anybody wants this PowerPoint, I'll send it to them. Just email me, Dan@PrecinctStrategy.com. You can get all these graphics. And again, here's the important. We got to get united where we live for real political action to help elect real Republicans and stop re-electing the losers that we keep re-electing. So again, here's that first slide. Pray, recruit precinct committee, repeat. We're not getting it done. We got to get it done. And you can also read all about it in my book. You can get that through my website, PrecinctStrategy.com. $9.99 for that paper book. There it is on a silver platter. What I learned in 7th grade civics. You can read it in 30 minutes. There's a digital version, $2.99. And then there's an audible version for $3.99. And you can get the digital version for free if you get the $3.99 audible version. You get all three of them for $15. What a deal, right? So that's all I got. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. Let's see. Stop the share.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Right.
Appreciate it. If it's not for Dan, I wouldn't be here. Dan got me on Steve Bannon about 3 years ago. We lose track of time. Dan's been doing this for 14 years or more. I lose track of time. We were supposed to have Maureen on Bannon today, but she got tied up with her dad. And he gives everybody his regards. He couldn't make it today either. He's got some attorneys to speak to. He's actually got another trial coming up, and we would appreciate it if you go to standwithbannon.com. Let's support Steve Bannon. He spent 4 months in jail, came out looking a little thinner. Want to put this up on the screen, Raj?
You are on the screen now. Yep, we can see it.
All right, go to standwithbannon.com. We only have about 300 shirts left. We sold about 10,000, and we want to support Steve when we can. Okay, next up is Linda Rance. Linda?
Hello. Hey, thank you for having me, Steve. And hi, Raj. Thanks for all you do to make these things happen. So I just want to kind of give, for people who don't know me, my name is Linda Rance. I work with Cause of America, which is one of Mike Lindell's organizations, part of the Mike Lindell team, and there is Mike Lindell Plan at thelindellplan.com. And I have two topics I kind of want to touch on here today. So first, I want to talk about hand counting because that's where my background, I'm the coordinator for hand counting. We have a manual out. We've been teaching around the country. We're days out to an election, but we put out a tech alert and we put out an emergency preparation guide. So that guide that is out can be downloaded at handcounting.com/emergency prep. And what it has in it, it condenses down the entire hand count process, very simple process, and it puts it out there so that anyone who, hopefully your clerks, your auditors, the people responsible for your elections, if anything was going to happen, it would give them the information that they needed to be able to hand count. We've already heard, came up on Twitter or X the other day, that I think it was a county in Nevada, all their machines, something happened, they're not going to be able to use them. I don't know if that's exactly how it'll play out, but what do? You got to be ready to hand count. General Flynn talked about North Carolina, weather emergencies, anything can happen. So the material in the guide, there's also a tool for estimating. And when you take that estimator, you can look at it and say, okay, here's how many voters we have. Here's what our expected turnout would be. It will tell you exactly how many pieces of paper to print out, how many pens to have, how many paper clips, how many, of anything that you need. So for us, that is our contribution to getting that out there. We can ask questions. I actually have clerks who are calling me and I'm helping them walk through what they would do just in case. If you have a clerk or someone, and we have a lot of counties where they refuse to prepare and they're like, nope, nothing's going to happen. No electrical outlet, outages, nothing. You can prepare as a citizen. You could be ready to go and step in, which is why we went around and taught. So the other thing that I really want to touch on then, and you've heard it, I know from the prior speakers, and I think it's a theme out there because we're all ready to be prepared. And that's in watching what happens in these elections and reporting incidents. So Mike Lindell teamed up with Catherine Engelbrecht, who I know is on the call later, from True the Vote, and she'll probably talk about the True the Vote aspect of it. But True the Vote has an app called votealert.org. Now, it's not in the App Store. Catherine will explain more, but it is an app that you can put on your phone or use on your computer, and they're already receiving incident reports. From Mike's side of it, he has Frank's Social, which is now called Vocal, V as in Victor, OCL.com. So vocal.com. And that's our side of it. The Cause of America teams from all the states, all of our groups are all working on it. So it's a very simple way that people can go into that site and enter that something has happened and post it up there. And then we're going to be reviewing it. So for instance, in my state of Missouri on election day, we have a team that's going to be sitting here and all day long watching any of the reports that come in specifically for Missouri and anywhere else. And you can do it as well, because the difference is with some of these reporting tools is that whatever the information is being done and aggregated in this partnership with True the Vote and Mike Lindell, it's very transparent. It will appear on the electioncrimebureau.com website as soon as they're viewed, because we're not going to let people spam it and put a lot of garbage in there, but we're going to check these as soon as they're approved to push through. They do show up on the website there. So you'll be able to go and take a look and see what's happening on a live feed and look for the trends and look for whatever else, you can see that's happening in it and add some comments to it. Now, oh, thank you. So I see the graphic has gone up on an alert on our form that went out. So there are some videos up that you can get to pretty quickly that will explain how to use Vote Alert or Vocal to do this. You can email the Cause of America team at electionwatch@causeofamerica.org, and you'll find information there. The real-time monitoring, electioncrimebureau.com. And, I've already spoken, because people are giving out my personal phone number, which is fine. I get people calling me and they say, I don't use a phone. I don't use a PC. I saw stuff. I want to report it. True the Vote has a 24/7 election helpline at 866-888 2024. So these are all tools that you can use to go in and help. So I'm just gonna, Steve, I'm gonna take one more quick second just to kind of refresh on these different links that people can go to. And I think that's probably as much as they need to know from me today. If you're looking for emergency information for hand counting, go to handcounting.com/emergency prep. There's information there. If you have questions about it, please email handcount@causeofamerica.org. If you want to know more about the 2 tools that are available, there's the link for Vote Alert. It is votealert.org. And if you click on that, they'll give you a little app that helps you to install it either on your PC or your phone. 2 years ago, as Catherine, I hate to do her talk, but she explained to us on our Cause of America call, the App Store took their app down. That's why they're doing this one a little bit differently this year. It's too important. And we're working with them. We are helping them to monitor and to curate the incidents that come in there and the ones that we get. And then the real-time monitoring dashboard, these will be coming in probably more and more frequently and more quickly, is at electioncrimebureau.com. So those are the tools. Election Watch at causeofamerica.org if you have questions for us. But look, everybody will say, I want something that I want to help, I want to do something. Keeping your eyes open as you're hearing from all of these speakers, speaking up, getting out there, vote, of course, but getting keeping an eye on it and getting that information back to us is invaluable, and then watching with us.
Thank you very much. We
Thanks,
have breaking news. I normally don't do this, but we have something urgent that has just come to us. See if you can find Pete Santilli from the Pete Santilli Show. He's coming in for 5 minutes with some huge news here for everybody. You'll be the first to hear of it.
I see Pete. Pete, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Go ahead and unmute. And you're unmuted. Go ahead, Pete. You're up.
Am I on mute?
You are good. Go ahead, Pete.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. And it's great that, I'm honored to be on the call. Steve, Raj, you guys do a great job. I've been telling Steve, I think over the past week now, and the reason why it's been the past week is because of the amount of work that went in from the legal side, the Trump campaign side. I may mention a little bit about that. As to this release that's coming today, and you guys are hearing about it, it's going to be in about 1 hour. A multi-year investigation done by a great, high-integrity investigative journalist named Millie Weaver. She started her investigation back in 2020. You may have heard about it. She actually infiltrated the Sunrise Movement, Marxist organization. They were doing Zoom calls, and wait till you hear about those Zoom calls. But this investigation, she went deep undercover. It was part of the calls and their planning and all of that. And that investigation has been a multi-year investigation leading all the way up to the present day and this current election. Now, what she has done, and I'm going to share some graphics with you, essentially, she has uncovered all of the Marxist planning. This is straight up RICO, as said by the attorneys. There's a former prosecutor that worked with the SDNY, that's the New York Federal District Office, that was part of bringing down the Gambino crime family. And he said that this is just straight up money laundering, racketeering, corruption, conspiracy for the purposes of overthrowing the United States of America. Is it that big? It is. Has this been vetted? Yes, it has. It's been vetted and combed over by attorneys. Peter Tickton, a lifelong confidant and friend of President Trump, dating all the way back to their days in the military academy. He's also been a retained attorney of President Trump, has been essentially providing counsel to and riding shotgun embedded with Millie Weaver because of the magnitude of this investigation. He's been doing this with her for the better part of the last 4 years. On top of that, I think maybe a couple years ago, Laura Logan started taking a look at Millie Weaver's information, and most recently has been really digging in. Now, I do want to say just one negative thing here, okay, but ultimately it's going to be positive, and you're going to hear why in just a second. The number of agencies that have been overthrown is something we've known, but we have proof of it. The FBI was notified, the Department of Homeland Security, everyone you can't even imagine how many people within our conservative movement, they realized how big this was, and they just didn't know what to do with it. And then when it came down to it into the 2024 campaign, this thing was about to be released. Even the Trump campaign said, if we were to release this, we have momentum, it would look like election meddling. I actually went out to meet with Team Trump just a couple weeks ago in North Carolina. But guess what, folks? We're going to turn the corner here, okay? We're calling it, this is my term, Operation ATM. And I'm referring to it as ATM because it's for all the marbles. It really is for all the marbles, because these people that have been involved in this, that you're going to see, they got caught and they need to go to jail. The following is Millie Weaver's mind map, and I've linked to this, and you guys are going to see how you can get stay in touch with the developments in this thing. It basically provides a powerful visual representation of her multi-year undercover investigation. Every article of evidence collected since the November 2020 election, cataloged, started offshore, and for the past couple of years, Laura Logan has also reportedly been working with Millie Weaver to vet this information. All right. Now, I'm going to give you a way that you can actually get to this link, and then down at the bottom, I'm going to wait till you hear the great news, by the way. This is all of the evidence right here, cataloged for full display for everyone to see. Okay. Now, let me show you the magnitude of what we're talking about. You guys are actually the first ones that I'm releasing to this extent publicly. Not to preempt what Millie's going to do. You guys do great work, but we need to get the word out. The mainstream media is not going to cover it. I call them the ivory tower independent media, Newsmax, Real America's Voice. They do a great job, but they get sued, right? So they can't be the first ones to go out there. This is so huge, you guys. Now look at this mind map. This was from the Zoom calls. She actually has recorded Zoom calls that you'll have access to that show the organizations that were involved in this. The ACLU, these are the hundreds of NGOs, the unions, some military people within our government, the Army Corps of Engineers, Chris Doles, okay? These names of people and pictures and screenshots and their voices on the calls, plotting to overthrow the United States of America, folks. Millie Weaver has all of their documentation. Wait till you hear what she has. This is an organization called Shutdown DC. Patrick Young. Yes, and I will, please. If we could, thank you very much. My board operator just jumped down there and asked me if I wanted to go full screen. Folks, Lisa Fithian, okay? Very, very dangerous communist. CIA, I believe she's CIA, but only one will be able to tell later on. David O'Donnell from XR Chicago, XRDC. By the way, in this mind map, Millie has included a breakdown, all their social media links, who they are, their LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about this is the most widespread conspiracy in the history of the United States.
2 minutes, Pete. We got to run on. We got other people, so I got you.
All right, 2 minutes. It'll be an ongoing project. Yes, thank you. Affinity groups. Okay. We have people in academia. Look at this. The number of people involved with this. Trainers, facilitators, Code Pink, Peace Action, Greenpeace. We've got the Brookings Institute, Mental Health America. We even have current legislators that she has nailed. Now, here's the thing that you need to do. Text the word treason to 844-837-5132. And this is what we're going to do. Here's the final comment. Here's the beautiful part. We've prepared something. When this release goes out, we're going to have a landing page where people will have all the evidence. Millie's bombshell report will be released in about 55 minutes. And we're going to give you a landing page to where everyone in their appropriate jurisdictions will be able to file police reports with the sheriff's department. 3,000 sheriffs are going to be notified of this, of the incoming police reports. We need bucket brigade style. Get the word out. Not even our independent media is going to touch this. It's going to be we the people. Get it out there. Let's file police reports. And to get that link to her report, and right now you can take a look at all the evidence. You'll have access to it. 844-837-5132. You have to text the word treason, okay? And you will have access. It's all already uploaded to a Dropbox link. Steve, this is the first time I've released this. You know, I've been holding it for a week.
I know that. Can you put this in the chat and also let everybody know how they can reach you or reach somebody to get more information?
You know, let's do this. Go to that page, text treason at 844-837-5132. All focus will be on this. All focus will be on getting these police reports filed. We have evidence of a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the United States of America. These aren't lawsuits that are going to last years. This is going to be a formal criminal prosecution of the people that we all know are involved in perpetrating this fraud, but to overpower the U.S. I say God bless America and God bless Millie Weaver. Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, folks.
You got it, Pete.
Awesome. So we have Thomas Kasparek coming up next. And before he comes on, for those of you that are watching this on the live stream across our various partners, thank you to our partners for doing that. If you would like to get direct information on when these meetings take place, like the one you're watching right now, you can do that several ways. You can text the word defend to 91776. You can also, if you don't want to do that, follow us on X. You can follow it at Stern American or at defend_our union. You can also, many people ask, how do I get to the replay? How do I get to the replay of these shows? If you go to sternamerican.com, and click the Rumble channel, that will take you to the replays of all of these shows. Or you can watch it on the podcaster show that you're watching this on. Thomas, thanks for being with us, sir. You are up now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Raj. Let's see. I'll make sure. Thanks, Raj. Steve, appreciate what you guys are doing. Very grateful to come on. What I am coming on to talk about today is Virginia. And we call it the head of the snake. And we've done a lot of work here. We've got teams across the state, which I'll cover in a minute. But we've had to kind of be internally focused on most of what we've been doing because we have all the three-letter agencies here. We have a lot of people over here that work for the government. And so once we started finding out some of the depth of some of the information that we were obtaining, we decided to kind of keep our head below the water. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished. There's only a few minutes, and I thought it'd be best to start with, I just want to thank Dan Schultz, General Flynn. There have been a few people that, you know, when we started to see the breadth and depth of what happened in 2020, we realized that there was a huge problem and that we as individuals couldn't do everything all at once that needed to be done. And so it took a couple of years for us to figure out, like, what's our swim lane, right? So a lot of trial and error there. And what we came down to in the last few months, I think, is absolutely worth sharing. So what we did in the last 2 years, Dan, to speak to your lament about the Trump people not getting involved, I guess in a sense I share that same sentiment. What we did was we formed a MAGA caucus, okay? We formed a group of voters that the rhinos couldn't overcome. And then we started winning seats in the committees. And the election integrity work that we did, Colonel Flynn, was, we just decided that we had to take it seriously, what you said about we have to take our power at the base, which is in our precincts, in our county, in front of our electoral board, in front of our supervisory board, in front of our registrars. The most power is, these people need to look us in the eye and deal with, the problems that they're facing in our elections, and it's all broken. And so we used the precinct committeeman concept to take over from the rhinos in Loudoun County, believe it or not, in Loudoun County. So what we did with the election integrity work was so effective outside the Republican Party. I mean, we had to do it that way because we couldn't get anything done because the rhinos were stopping us every which way. One quick example. We filed 440 voter ID challenge in Loudoun County, and I'll cover the package in a minute, but our Democrat registrar called the Republican lawyer, Chris Marsden, at the state of Virginia Republican Party. They're all rhinos. And he talked to the state leader in the Republican Party of Virginia. They called my unit chair in Loudoun, who is MAGA, and said, you need to call these people and tell them to back off. So he called me and I said, well, Marsden, they got a problem with what we're doing. Scott, let me remind you, everything we've done in election integrity has been on our own as citizens. It has nothing to do with the RPV. So back off. We're not part of what your power base is. We're doing this election integrity work as citizens. So we basically told them, sorry to say it this way, Steve, pound sand, because we did all our own work. We did all our own research. We paid for it mostly with all of our own resources. And so what did we do? Currently, we now have 11 counties that we've challenged with a voter registration ID challenge in, we've got 11 counties: Loudoun County, Hanover, Henrico, Chesapeake, Virginia. Shout out to my Frederick brothers there on the call. Prince William, Fairfax, Nelson, Rockingham, Matthews. So what we've done, Steve, is we've given a package, including a cover letter and an affidavit that basically you can go in front of your board with in Virginia. In Virginia, we can, with 3 qualified voters who intend to vote in 24, can challenge voter registrations. And what we chose to do was we challenged voter registrations based on incomplete or incorrect address information. Okay, so Raj, this is something that it's either true or it's not true. We got the voter database from Virginia. We got the voter history from Virginia. We took a look, we ran that against the national change of address using an industry standard data mining tool. And we compared the two and we said, okay, well, this guy lives out of state. And so why is he on the current voter registration list? Well, we only had about 320,000 of those across Virginia. Are you hearing me? 540,000 of these registrations that are broken, they're invalid because they don't have all the information that's required off of the voter registration form, right? So we're challenging those in 11 counties and in various stages of challenging, and we're getting it's working. Okay, we demanded a investigation of these before the 2020. We demanded that they cannot certify the elections because their voter rolls are so wildly inaccurate. They have no idea who's going to vote. They have no idea how many of these invalid voters are going to vote. So they need to fix them and get them off. That's our remedy. What else we've done, Steve, is we've filed, again, in these 11 counties. We also have put out what we would call a formal HAVA complaint. So there's a process in Virginia where we can formally file a complaint. It reads kind of like a lawsuit. It's really a damn good instrument that we wrote, that we filed with the state. We haven't gotten a response back. We're kind of sort of proud about that. we have gotten the exact same response from all the registrars. So we're peeling the onion on that. We're not going to let them hide. We're going to stay in there. We're going to hang in there all the way to certification. Okay. We also dropped today at noon a federal court case against the C-suite here in Virginia, elect, which is our, commissioner of elections, the attorney general, Jason Miyares. We filed against Glenn Youngkin. We have broken elections here, guys. Nothing personal to my Rhino friends on the call, but we are dead serious about fixing elections here in Virginia. So we filed that. All of our case, Steve, is based on civil rights legislation. So we learned a lot from Marley. We learned a lot from Linda Rance and some of the people in Frank's speech and Mr. Lindell's groups. And we've kind of just taken what we can from the different groups and do what we can in our state to have an impact at the local level. So that's what we've done. And if anyone has any questions, I'd love to take those. We're not looking for money. We're not looking for help. We're kicking ass over here in Virginia.
Great. Put that in the chat. Any questions? Aubrey Campbell, you're up next.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I also want to start out by thanking you, Steve. You are just you're an inspiration. Okay, to all of the younger people that are trying to get involved in politics, y'all need to start taking notes on what Steve is doing, because he's like a dog with a bone. He does not let you go. If he knows that you've got something, he's going to make sure that he's going to platform you to give it out to the people. And I appreciate you beyond words, Steve. You're amazing. So thank you. My name is Aubrey. I run Taking Back Texas, takingbacktexas.org, but we've just gone national. Now we're running tbtr.us. That's Taking Back the Republic. I've been poll watching in Tarrant County for the last 3 years. I'm the closest one in this entire movement to Hyder Smartmatic Garcia. He doesn't like it when I call him that, so I told him I wouldn't anymore. We have been training poll watchers for 3 years, as well as investigating our local elections. And again, no offense to our Rhino friends on this call, but you're grifting. It's been noticed. If you're not a poll watcher, you cannot properly train poll watchers. If you're not a poll watcher, you cannot properly vet poll watcher reports. If you go to tbtr.us, we have our nationally applicable poll watchers training available now. It's $35, and there's still time for you to become a pro poll watcher in 1 day. Okay, we tell you exactly what we want you to look for, exactly what we want you to record, and why we want you to record it. We're going to tell you exactly how to help us track your location's totals from day to day throughout early voting, even if it's a week or so into early voting, even if it's the last day of early voting. There are still items that you can request to see that can track the totals from day to day. We teach you all about the chain of custody form. You're going to understand what chain of custody is and how important it is and how to double check it from location to location when you're following these records. Okay. We have the most comprehensive, nationally applicable poll watchers training for beginners and for experienced watchers, because most of these trainings that are being put out, especially the ones backed by the RNC, and again, it's nothing personal. This is strictly business. They're garbage. They don't know what to tell these watchers to look for. Again, if you've not been poll watching, you cannot train poll watchers. There's a bigger picture issue here that it takes years of experience to actually catch on to. I can catch you up. tbtr.us, and our poll watchers training is there on the homepage. We do have a graphic that you can use. You can download it from our website, and it's a graphic. It's got a QR code on it that will take you to our complaint form. When you fill out our complaint form, it's coming to me. It's coming to me and my team of very experienced poll watchers right here in Tarrant County, watching very closely what Hyder Garcia does to elections. And if you don't know about Hyder Garcia, just look into him, Google him. Hyder Garcia, Philippines, Hyder Garcia, Venezuela. Okay. He's like the King Midas of elections, but everywhere he goes turns blue. That's what we call him. It's a little joke that Captain Keschel and I have been telling for a few years, because Captain Keschel's aware of the amount of work that we've been doing right here in Tarrant County since early 2021. Not trying to offend anybody, but if your trainer has not been poll watching for years and has not done the amount of work, over 30 plus reports like what I've done, then they probably haven't caught on to what's going on. We have. We give you a little bit of insight as well as a watcher into where all of this influence into the unlawful conduct of elections is coming from. So there's the basics for what we want you to record as a watcher, and then there's additional context for you. Once you take our training, you don't necessarily need to come back to us. If you have questions, we're always available. But we try to get it to where once we prepare you, you're good to go. You're like an Energizer bunny. We're going to wind you up and set you off. You'll start to see it for yourself. And every state has unique issues, though the issues that are being pushed across the nation by these NGOs are having identical effects on all of our states' elections. They are rendering our elections impossible to audit. So we're going to tell you exactly what you need to know to help your candidate track those totals. Again, you're not there for you. You're not there for Trump. You're not there for the media. You're not there for a headline. You're there to record what's happening at those locations and track those totals and follow those ballots, follow that chain of custody, and to report back to your appointing authority what you've noticed. Now, sometimes you record something, you think, I'm not sure if that's a big deal. Sometimes what looks like a big deal turns out to not be such a big deal. Sometimes what looks like a small issue turns out to be an indicator of a big picture problem. So we'll help you decipher those because we've got plenty of experience. We've got watchers in counties with HART, in counties with ES&S. So we're able to explain the differences between those two systems, which are the most widely used systems. We don't use Dominion at all in Texas. If your county uses Dominion, you can still take our training, and basically everything that we're asking you to record for HART and ES&S can be recorded with Dominion as well. These voting systems are similar enough to have identical effects on our elections, but just different enough that sometimes you'll have to get in there and determine which machines are called what, but you can still record all this data in your county. You can do it in less than a day. You can do it in a couple hours, depending on how fast you work, or everyone works at a different pace, but in one day you can become a pro poll watcher at tbtr.us. And I highly encourage you to download that graphic with the QR code. It's like black and yellow. You'll see it. It's right on the front screen. That graphic can be held on your phone if you're standing outside the elections greeting watchers or greeting voters, and you see that voters are coming out frustrated. You can say, you know what? You don't have to swear to anything right now, but if you want to scan this QR code, you can fill out this form and tell us what you saw, and we will get that vetted. We'll determine whether or not that's an issue. If the voter wants, they can put in their contact info. Not necessary, because some of what we're doing is just kind of recording reports. If they put in the information about the location, we can go and vet some of what they're reporting. Okay. Again, you need to have experience poll watching in order to train effective poll watchers. You need to have experience poll watching in order to vet reports that are coming in from watchers, workers, or voters. And it's not because, people who haven't poll watched are stupid or anything like that. It's not that. It's a matter of experience. There's a big picture thing here, and we're tracking it. All right. And that additional context is also in our training. And I want to say thank you so much again to Steve. You're amazing. Everyone share out the Flag Store website. Okay. Get him funded.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I don't know if everybody can see this, Raj. Can you put me on the screen?
Yeah, stand by. Stand by. Hold on. Okay, great, Steve, you're up. Go ahead, sir.
So the RNC has asked me to ask for poll watches in Detroit, Kalamazoo, and one other county in Michigan. So if you're in Michigan, we certainly need poll watchers there. You still can be a poll watcher. In Pennsylvania, we need poll watchers. Those are the two states that they really need poll watchers. So if you go to protectthevote.com, you can still sign up in many states to be a poll watcher. And I am a poll watcher in Florida. Just to let everybody know, in Florida, we have early voting has been sensational. I think we had somewhere 5.7 million people vote already. By tonight, we'll have over 6 million people to vote. And the Republicans are outnumbering the Democrats by about 70 to 40, 65 to 35, something like that. So it's really fantastic. So again, Protect the Vote, Philadelphia. That's one of the most important areas. If you are listening from Philadelphia, please get in touch with me. sstern1054@gmail.com. Very important. Our next guest is R.C. Williams.
And right before we bring R.C. Williams on, a couple of other announcements here for you. So going into next week, likely there's going to be chaos, a lot of people making a lot of noise. So please be thinking about how you can direct your audiences. There will be issues and shenanigans going on even after Tuesday. So please, you can check out Votify now. They have an excellent app reporting app. You can also go to Defend Your Voice. This helps you identify who voted for who. You can check them out. You can also go to honorhiscross.org. This is an effort specifically for pastors. They are probably going to be one of the most influential, potentially influential voices in the next few weeks. If you, my friends on this call or watching this live stream, can motivate them to engage in this conversation. So if you go to honorhiscross.org, it's been built specifically for faith leaders. Click on the pastor link. There's a complete course there on how they can be acquainted on how to be effective and how they can broach these conversations that some of them try to avoid because they're too afraid. So give them that kind of information. So please take a look at those. And now we're going to our next speaker, R.C. Williams and Juliana Armand. Go ahead, R.C., you're up.
Thank you, Raj, and you, Steve. R.C. Williams. Much for the work you're doing, not just Steve and Raj, but everyone on this call that's taking action. By way of introduction, we are co-founders of Watchman Action. Our nonprofit is designed to bridge the gap between all the great tools that are out there and the people that need them, with a particular focus on believers and followers of Jesus Christ. So we actually spoke at Raj's Rally for Our Lives event in Venice last Friday, and our talk was focused on voting in a certain way. So we've heard a lot, even General Flynn at the beginning said we need to get people to vote. One of the challenges that we historically have is helping people understand why they should vote. Now, we've got security in place, we're doing all of these great things, but often the challenges come before anybody sends in a ballot or goes to a precinct to vote because they don't clearly understand why. And that includes the 30 million plus believers who choose not to participate in this process, which could very well swing an election. If we could, I want to take a moment and read a bit of scripture to you, and then we're going to give some context around it as to why this is important. That scripture is Ezekiel 33:6, which also happens to be the primary prayer for Watchman Action. But if the watchman sees the sword come and doesn't blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, if that sword comes and takes any person from among them, then the blood will be on the watchman's hand.
So the reason why we use this scripture with everything that we do is because at the sound of my voice, I always tell all of my watchmen, I don't care if you're a Christian or if you're Jewish, right? Because Ezekiel's Old Testament, at the sound of my voice, if you hear what's going on and you don't warn your brothers and sisters, you are in trouble. You know, some of us need a real thump inside the head to make us move and do the things that we need to do. And that's the reason why I always use, you know, us as watchmen, that when you hear something, you need to do something. So RC and I are investigative journalists. We started writing about things because with our market research, we started seeing things that we were like, we need to be warning our brothers and sisters. And it got to the point where Father was like, you need to be talking about really important topics like transhumanism and transgenderism and what our government's trying to do. Because a lot of people aren't awake to what's happening. Maybe most of the people on this call are, but most of our brothers and sisters are not awake. They don't know what's going on. So we took the time to say, okay, so now we need to warn our brothers and sisters, and we were writing about it. But then how do we take action? We started to see that people like Dan Schultz and his precinct strategy, like it's a great product, right? It's a great tool and people need it. But getting that product and those tools and the tools and the people together was the challenge. So we literally spent all this time and effort to write a workbook so that we can help our community, our people move in a block. Because right now the church has become so irrelevant that even when we start speaking our Christian beliefs, people are turned off by that. So we, the church, need to get back into leading the culture and talking about what's going on and saying we reject what it is that this globalism we're trying to bring in. We do not want those things. Therefore, what are we going to do? And how do we allow our voices to be heard? So with Watchman Action, we're doing just that, so that we can say, we together are saying, this is what we're looking for our society to look like and to have.
So let's give some context to the process, right? Because we talked about why we have to do it and what our biblical responsibility is, but God is also a God of order. Mm-hmm. And he tells us through the prophets, take your pick, Nehemiah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, repent Come with humility. Pray, fast unceasingly. Believers are often lost in this process because they don't understand why they need to take the action or why they need to be engaged, nor do they properly understand the responsibility and the consequences that go along with that. So for everyone on this call, you're already in, right? If you're watching the stream, you're likely already in. This isn't even necessarily for you, beyond the fact that you need to go and have this conversation with the 1 or 2 people that you really don't want to have it with. And the reason you don't want to have it with them is because you need to have it with them. You need to take this information and this context and have that conversation with them. Here's why. You can get them to move, but you don't know what spark you're going to ignite. They may be the one that get thousands of people to move in the right direction. So the follow-on to that is what happens on November 6th. Now we've talked about on this call, there's going to be chaos and this and everything else. We also have to be looking forward at how we empower the people that we've educated to make sure these things don't happen anymore, right? You've got to have a blueprint in order to go and properly convey an issue, not to the people in the church, not to the people who will never come to the church, but to the people who are in the middle, who are begging people like us to step up, help them understand why they need to do things and how they can take action. Thus, Watchman Action looks to connect the dots between current events and scripture, but also to bridge the gap between the great tools, many included on this call, and the people that need them. So we encourage you guys to go to the site. It's watchmanaction.org. watchmanaction.org. You can sign up for the email list. You can support the cause if you so choose. We would be blessed to have your support, but you can also see what we're going to move forward with going into 2025 as far as our teaching. We're working with the team, Raj and Defend Florida, very closely on this so that our training is the gold standard and all of these great tools get a level of exposure that they've never had before. Guys, we thank you so much for the time.
Site again, repeat your site again, please. People
Sure, Steve. It's Watchman Action. So it's watch, M-E-N, watchmanaction.org. We'll put that in the chat for everyone as well. But it's a blessing to be with you guys. Continue to pray in repentance and unceasingly and help people understand why they need to take these actions. Not that they just need to take them, but why. If we do that part right, everything else that we're doing, all the hard work that the people on this call are doing will all start to make sense to the people that we're trying to reach. We love and appreciate you guys.
You got it. Greg Stenstrom, you're up, the Wonder Boy.
You myself. Raj is getting ready to share, but I just wanted to start off with just a few observations. I've been listening since the beginning. I caught just a little bit after General Flynn started to talk, and I think I've caught most of this stuff today. So we've got good news, bad news today. For anybody who hasn't seen the pop-ups, I haven't heard it mentioned, there's a NASCAR event right now on ABC, and I see people shaking their heads. They just popped up the same mistake they made in 2020 and 2022. They popped up that it was Harris over Trump, 52% to 47% in Pennsylvania. That was an election day update a week early. So the fix is in. It's my belief that the RNC's too big to rig strategy was a disaster to start with. I believe it's already failed. And we've been in a delaying action for 4 years, to be able to run another fraudulent election. The premise that the elections were safe and secure, even amongst the RNC, and the premise of voting early and taking mail-in ballots and getting as many in before the election, I think the insanity of that was the proposition was, let's take all of our ballots and let's stick them into a big black box that we have no visibility into the centralized counting centers that we don't run and that are run by basically malevolent parties. I wouldn't call it Democrat, more so than communist, Marxist, self-interest. But the centralized counting centers, as most people here who are familiar, Aubrey, that's the first time, if Aubrey's still here, I hadn't heard her before, but for people who have been poll watchers and been at the polls and understand how the elections work, the centralized counting centers are what they call a black box. And the people in the group that contain a black box control the election. So this is why we're seeing the polls saying they're neck and neck, Harris, Trump. On November 5th or 6th, they're going to announce Kamala Harris has won the presidency. And then it's going to be a fight to take it back and show that there was massive election fraud. I was on the Elon Musk town hall here in Delaware County last week and got a hold of the mic and let him know that in the last 2 weeks, we've had the Secretary of Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for Elections, Jonathan Marks, testify in 2 different counties that he knows, and the election directors and most of the state people who run the elections know that most of the machines in Pennsylvania for election machines are not certified in accordance with federal law. They have not been tested for the validity of their code. They call that secure build validation or hash code testing. That must be done before every election to make sure there's not invalid code on the machines. That has systemically not been done at the direction of the Secretary of Commonwealth and Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania. They know that those things haven't been done. And the worst part is last week in Delaware County, Alfie Goodwin, Dr. Alfie Goodwin was running for Congress here, and Robert Mancini, who is a cyber expert, were able to elicit testimony that and confirm that there is unauthorized code on all of the election machines in Delaware County. There is unauthorized code on all of the machines in Delaware County, and we know this is the truth throughout the state. The judges are either confused or corrupt, and they say, well, with all the security procedures after, we have corrupted code, we should be okay. It's a ludicrous argument, but that's the way it is. The RNC and Trump campaign are completely disconnected from the patriot grassroots groups here. Pretty much most of us here are talking in silos. We're on our own. Most people here are not getting help from the RNC and the Trump campaign. The phones remain unanswered on that end. It does not put money in their pockets, personal pockets. And I'm not talking about President Trump. I'm talking about people at the top levels of the campaign. Some of them may be listening. I invite anyone who would like to refute that to call me personally. I also like to welcome law enforcement, anybody who's here. I hope this has been entertaining for you. We're on our own. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is I've heard multiple people here today, Marley Hornick and others. We have apps and reporting mechanisms, multiple places where you can report election crimes and election anomalies. We're one of them. I'm going to show you that. One last thing before I share my screen, and I'll step through things quickly in terms of what we're doing about all this, is that the RNC, at least in Pennsylvania, is not paying for signs. My company, www.patriot.online, has 5 huge signs up at the airport, Route 95 and 476. If you see them there, give them a wave. Let me know you saw them. We have patriots that are in this group right on here now, and other people that I know who are paying tens of thousands of dollars on their own to pay for signs. Most of the Trump signs you're seeing on the lawns are not being paid for by the RNC. They're not investing in that. Raj, if you're ready, I'd like to share my screen and just tell you what we're doing about all this.
Yes, sir. Just click the green share button and go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to share this screen. I think I got the right one. Here we go. So at this point, I'm just going to move this over so I can read. So I'm sorry for the dire news, and I'm going to try to step through what we're doing about it. If you can all see my screen, Raj,
Yes.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, in the Supreme Court of the United States is what I see on your screen.
We have a 23 petitioners have a petition before the Supreme Court. It's been sitting there now
If you can go full screen, some of the people watching on a phone might see it a little better.
Okay, is that better, Raj?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Go ahead.
So this is actually a docketed case. It's 24-430. I'm going to click right when I finish talking. I'm going to hit a button. It'll give you put all the links in. This is filed as case 24-430. We actually called it the justice secured writ, but in the court dockets, it's got to be listed. So I'm the lead petitioner, in re Gregory Stenstrom et al. And what this is basically a demand that the Supreme Court direct the DOJ and the Department of Justice to rescind their unlawful policy of not investing election fraud before certification and joining the public and our groups to investigate before, during, and after. Right now, there is what we believe, and I know Marley, I didn't get to talk to her. I talked to her the other day, but I believe that there's a coordinated effort to obstruct and delay a lot of these cases. I know there's federal cases throughout the country. Our cases have been delayed since, we have one case that's been sitting there for 4 years. But related to the 2024 election, we have cases that have been languishing since June, July, and they're just being slow rolled and stopped by various parties within the federal courts and even the Supreme Court. But we have 23 petitioners from throughout the state, and what this does is a very simple writ of mandamus, extraordinary writ of mandamus. Most of the relief that's requested is what they call declaratory, just to tell the DOJ to comply with law. And what this is, if anybody who wants to get an overview of election fraud for the last 4 years, there are a number of exhibits in here. This case is, I think, 361 pages, chock full of links to videos and links to fraud cases throughout the country for the last 4 years. It's a little bit different. What we've asked the Supreme Court to do is exercise their constitutional authority under Article 2, Section 3, to direct the executive branch and possibly later the legislative branch to do their damn jobs. If they do that, that could turn the tide on the elections, because right now people are breaking the law, election officials, governors, and so forth, with impunity and without intervention by the DOJ or the Supreme Court. The next thing we did is we have a federal case filed right now. There's been most of the discussions over the past few months, and Steve, as we've run these shows every 2 weeks, Steve, I think we've been
some every week, some every 2 weeks.
So over the past months, Kathy Engelbert, I don't know if she's joining us today, and Greg Phillips and some of the other people here who were very, very focused on cleaning the voter rolls. I think they got a lot of success, and especially in bringing attention. I think that Governor Youngkin, his actions in Virginia, in terms of cleaning the voter rolls, was in large part due to the efforts of patriots here that have been on these shows, and I want to give credit to those people. But what we saw is we looked at this several years ago, in the past year, and we believed that they were going to steal the election. And what we had to do is we had to be ready to take it back and to challenge the certifications and so forth. We assumed that the fix was in and that there would be very little to do. We anticipated being slow rolled. So with this case here this is the lead petitioner is John Child. This is a group we call the Deep Divers here. We've got a couple of candidates. We have a candidate for state rep. We have Dr. Goodwin, who's up for Congress. I'm one of the petitioners, and we're suing the county and the county council. And in a nutshell, what this says is this is being done all over the state and the country. A person cannot get a mail-in ballot, or they shouldn't even be allowed to touch a mail-in ballot unless they are first verified as a qualified elector. That means they're a citizen. Where they're voting is, where they lay their head is where they're voting. And, the first attempt was to try to clean the voter rolls. But in order to get a mail-in ballot, you have to request one. And before they can give you one, they must verify that you're qualified in the first place. What they've done in Pennsylvania at the direction of Governor Shapiro, who I believe is highly corrupt, and the Secretary of State, who is highly corrupt, is they've said, let's violate federal law. We'll give mail-in ballots to anyone, we can get them to, whether they're illegal aliens or, give them out in shopping malls at pop-up centers, drop them off wherever we can. And what we'll do is we'll sort them out right before they get tabulated. We'll get them all into the centralized counting centers, and trust us, even though we violated the law to get millions of illegal ballots into the tabulation service, trust us, we will cull them out and we will remove them before they're tabulated. Of course, we all know that's not true. They needed those mail-in ballots from unqualified electors so they can show that Kamala Harris got 90, million votes. So what we expect is Kamala Harris will get anywhere between 85 to 95 million votes, and Trump is going to get, in the area of 80 million votes, and Kamala Harris will be declared the winner. They cannot do that unless they have that bulk and volume of mail-in ballots. So what we've asked the court to do, the federal court, is we've said you need to intervene, and we need to cull and remove those unlawful mail-in ballots from the tabulation before they're counted. Once a mail-in ballot is opened and a ballot is extracted, it's a fired bullet. You can't take it back. So what we did is we waited. We had to wait until pretty much the last minute on this, because we had to show them that we had done everything we could to get the county to comply with law. On October 10th, the head of the county council here in Delaware County said, we're not going to do it. Sue us. That was about 5 p.m. on the 10th. At about 8:30 a.m. on the 11th, they received this lawsuit, and it was filed in the federal court. We have a hearing on this tomorrow in Philadelphia. The judge, Mitch Goldberg, who's the president judge of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, promised us to take this under advisement. He wanted to hear us. 9:30 in the morning tomorrow, we'll be hearing this. Only thing we've asked him is to say that these ballots that were received illegally cannot be counted and must be culled. Now, this federal judgment, if we get it, will ripple throughout Pennsylvania. And the Secretary of the Commonwealth and at least the 67 counties in Pennsylvania will not be allowed to count those unqualified ballots from unqualified electors. It could also ripple throughout the country because it will be a federal decision. I do not believe they'll be able to challenge this, because this is a simple matter of federal law. A declaratory judgment is a much lower bar. All they have to do is say, this is the law, you need to follow it. If you don't, it's a 5-year prison sentence per incident. That's this case, heard tomorrow. This case right here has been in motion since June, and what we said was the state and the counties cannot use uncertified and untested machines. They have fought us vehemently on this. They know they're using machines with code that is, basically designed to flip the vote. All the efforts here, I've heard people that are getting ready for hand tabulation. Aubrey, I was listening to you earlier about poll watchers. We've got other people here who are ready to do hand tabulations. What we said to the judge when they said, well, how are we going to run the elections? What we said to the judge was, not my circus, not my monkeys. There's supposed to be a contingency plan. How they count them is however they want to count them. But what we suggest is that rather than let one person be in charge of the vote in a centralized counting center who's a political operator, why don't we go back to the 3,200 people and the citizens who were counting the vote before they decided to put the centralized counting centers in? I think the judge is listening to us on that regard, and we're going to be able to get a report to everybody by tomorrow. Just got a few more things. What we've done is we did this at the last minute purposely because it's the most opportune time. We just filed a request for declaratory relief in the federal court versus the Secretary of Commonwealth in Pennsylvania. This will ripple throughout the country. We believe that this will be granted, and it's a simple thing, that machines have to be certified and tested before they can be used, or it's a felony. That mail-in ballots can only be counted from qualified electors, or it's a felony. This is just plain law. What we've seen is judges of elections, we're seeing the Secretary of the Commonwealth and corrupt boards of elections. They made their poll watchers take tests, and they said, oh, you can't touch the ballot. The judges of elections will go to jail if they try to do any type of audit and so forth. Complete violation of the law. And what they're doing is they're trying to, frighten people. I see Aubrey shaking her head. Judges of elections, at least in Pennsylvania, are allowed to open the ballot box and do a hand count and compare it to the paper tape. That is a strict matter of law. So what we've asked the court to do, and the federal judge, is just to affirm that. Say, Your Honor, please affirm to the Secretary of the Commonwealth that the judges of elections and poll workers have specific statutory duties and rights, and that any unlawful order from the Secretary of the Commonwealth must be rescinded. We've asked to allow poll watchers and authorized representatives to observe canvassing activities. We should be able to walk around the centralized counting centers. We shouldn't be sitting in pens. What they did is the Secretary of the Commonwealth, at least in Pennsylvania, and other corrupt judges, quite frankly, said, oh, you have to sit in pens. And they quoted a case called In Re Canvassing in Pennsylvania. That case was about a lawyer who wanted to, observe the vote. And they said, well, you're not fulfilling a statutory duty. What they did is they interpreted that and they used that improperly to say, well, that means that poll watchers, which is a statutory duty, and authorized representatives, which is a statutory duty, we have a duty and a right to canvass, to go, wait a minute, let me see what you're doing there. We can't interfere, but we have rights, and we're there to observe the vote. We're not there to sit there like turnips 50 feet away while they count the vote. That is the law, and we've asked the judge to affirm that. One other thing is the way they've subverted the recounts and stopped people from getting visibility into the counting centers is that during testing, their precincts, they have to be, because in order to test machines or get them prepared, they have to put in that they're a precinct. So in Delaware County, there's 428 precincts, but when they do the testing and for all, for everything that they do, they have to use the centralized counting center as the 429th precinct. Yet, when we go to do recounts or we go to assert our rights as poll watchers and authorized representatives, they say, well, the centralized counting centers throughout the country are neither polling locations or precincts. It's a no man's land of nothing. We can't ask for recounts because it's not a precinct. We can't assert our rights as poll watchers, authorized representatives, and canvassers because they're not polling locations. We've created this black hole in this vacuum, which is litigatively untouchable. Okay, what we did is we know with the definition, any place where they're counting ballots is a precinct, period. That's a definition of law. Also, we've asked the judge to say, Your Honor, please classify the centralized counting centers as a precinct. Now, what that will do is that will allow us to get the visibility. It will allow us to do recounts. And we're not asking the judge to do, we're not asking him to stop anything or her. We're just saying, Your Honor, just declare what the law is so that when they come back at us with these made up policies, we're going to say, well, we've got an order here from a federal judge that says this is a precinct. We have an order here from a federal judge that I'm fulfilling a statutory role. I'm not going to stand in a cow pen like a turnip. The judges of elections can say, you know something? I saw 500 people with Trump hats on come in here and vote, and now I've got on the tapes it says that 400 people were for Kamala Harris and only 100 were for Biden. I think I'm going to open that ballot box and we're going to compare that to the paper tapes. Now, if those ballot counts do not match those paper tapes, prima facie evidence of election fraud requires a recount. Now, I'm just going to move on quick, Steve. I'm getting
2 minutes, Greg.
Okay, these are just some of the federal cases that we've got going. And what I don't like to do is, one of the reasons I love this particular podcast and the people that Steve collects is everybody here are doers. They're doing something. They're doing training. They're filing suits. They're training people. Everyone here is a doer. That's why I love being here. I don't like the shows that throw their hands up and say, "Oh, look at how bad things are or how great things are," and then they sell whatever, vitamins or whatever, and it's just it's a shtick. People do something here, and I want to thank everyone for that. Now we have a site called theparallelelection.com. Wrote a book with Leah Hoops about the steal of the 2020 election. You can buy that book here. And this is a great, it's really large font for anybody who wants to know what to look for, what fraud looks like. This is a great book. Kind of takes you through the whole election process and how things actually work. Easy to read. It's a good primer. Now, if you're not a big reader, then we put a 28-minute video here called The Big Con. And we take you from 2020 all the way up to 2024. And if you can't do any of the training that, Aubrey and other people here offer, and you want to get an idea of what's going on in the elections, how they're stealing, what you should be looking for, the whys and the whos, it's a pretty entertaining video. We show evidence. We show election officials admitting that they fabricated the entire election in 2020. We show them destroying evidence. We give you all the proof here, and we show you what you need to see. Great site, Parallel Election. You can buy the book. The movie's free. We hope you watch it. One of the things we're doing with Patriot.online is we are observing. We have several voting centers that we have online. This is Delaware County. This is live right now. We have caught them in multiple malicious acts, and we've called them on it. We've included. We record this 24/7 in HD. This is available to anybody from the public, and particularly from Delaware County. If any of you have links to centralized counting centers or drop boxes that you want to provide to us, we'll put them online and we'll let you watch them. But this has been integral to what we've been doing and the ability to file lawsuits showing malfeasance. Right here, Marley Hornick was on earlier, and there's other. I think there's apps, and I love everything that was here. I took some notes, but we did something I hope is idiot-proof. If you see fraud and you can't get to the sites or you don't want to disclose different things, you can come to www.patriot.online/upload, and all you have to do is put in the email that you want to get to. Click. You have to go through a couple of tests here just to show that you're human and the bots don't kill us. Okay. And then all you have to do is put your email in. We will send you a link. Whatever it is that you got, whether it's video, whatever, upload it here. And I told Marley I'll be working with her and several people here I'm going to try to work with. We don't have a unity of effort right now, but we have a lot of opportunities for people to report election fraud. That is going to be critical because we're going to create FBI reports and reports to the DOJ, and we're going to go back to the Supreme Court and say, make them do their damn jobs and investigate this time. I'm not going into a court with a Supreme Court, with a Department of Justice that's saying there's no election fraud. I'll leave you with this. This all costs money. Patriot.online. There's a donate button there. I'd really appreciate you taking a look at that or clicking that. Dropping a few dollars in. We don't have any major sponsors. Obviously, the RNC are not fans. We don't sell anything. All we do is we file litigation and we train people. This is Patriot.online is a social media site with news aggregation. It's fun to read. It's free. There's no ads. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to provide a phone number. And it's a complete social media site. And lastly, there's an election resources button there where we have all our cases are here. And, there's other videos and appearances and media appearances. So to summarize, we have a Supreme Court case in play that we expect to be heard. We have multiple federal cases that should ripple throughout Pennsylvania and the country. And we expect this to happen before the election. But if it doesn't, do not fear, because this puts them on notice they have been formally notified. If it takes a day or two or a week after the election for these things to make their way through, it's okay. It's going to be a long process. The fight is not over on November 5th. The fight is not over on December 17th with the state certifications. It's not over on January 6th. It's not over until January 20th. And this time that might not happen. We're going to go into a war here, and they're going to try to steal the election, and we're going to have to take it back this time. Be prepared to do that mentally, and we're all going to be okay.
Thank you, Greg. Linda, you're up.
Oh, thank you so much, Raj and Steve, for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to make it quick.
Well, one moment, Greg,
Okay.
if you could just stop the share.
I'm trying to do that now. 1 second.
No problem. Linda, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm just going to make mine quick because I know you're really tight for time. So we still have our data request. If you want to have people in your counties that you would like to take a look at that are potential double registered, double voters that you might want to cross-reference, feel free to request it on our site. Something else that we have been doing, we have actually had people sending us the voter rolls of people who have already voted. And what we have been doing is cross-matching to see if there are some people that should be looked into. And we're sending it back to the people with the ones that we have flagged that there might be issues. A trend that we are starting to see are the people who have not been removed from voter rolls when they should have been in the canvassing or should have been off, especially here in Connecticut. They're coming back and voting even though they haven't voted in 10 or 12 years. So they're using those wet ballots. The wet ballots are ones that people haven't voted in a long time that should have been removed. The nefarious people get in there, get them, and they vote in their place. So that's something to pay attention to. Something else that, again, I'm sure some of the speakers had already talked about this, the OCAVA votes, the overseas ballot votes. You have Vote Forward is a Democratic operative nonprofit. I have had multiple reports from people that the stuff they're sending in is highly questionable, which we know it is. They're telling people overseas also to just register, not using a driver's license, Social Security. They're telling them to pick a zip code and fill it out from there. So people really need to watch out for those overseas ballots. That's a huge one. Another quick little thing, I know Greg had talked about his program for reporting anything that nefarious that may be going on election day. Fight Voter Fraud, that's our website, fightvoterfraud.org. We have had for 4 years a reported app. You can be anonymous, you can send videos, you can send pictures. We can actually respond to the people. And the best thing is, within 3 to 5 seconds of you sending it, I get it as well as one other person here on our phone, plus in our email, but we can forward it to somebody else. That's what we did in 2023 in Arizona. So if there's anybody out there that would like to be a point person for their state, that if we get anything that comes in for their state, send me an email and we can forward you what we are seeing literally within 3 to 5 seconds of the information. So my email is Linda, Linda, at fightvoterfraud.org. So if you have any, if you have an interest in that, we'd be more than happy to send them along. We'll be combing through them. Back in 2020, we had 36 states in 2 countries, and it actually went on for almost 2 months of all the stuff that came in. So look for that. That's on our website. And the other thing that we wanted to just let you know, apparently the illegal votes in the state of Connecticut had been going for $100 a piece, but I guess now they want more. We've had a whistleblower that came out with information. I had somebody who contacted me today who started doing some research. And I mean, it's just unbelievable what is going on. And I told him, I said, I need hard evidence. I need emails. You got to give me more than what you heard. But he said the conclusion of what's going on is it's really not just the individual illegals that are the ones registering and voting. The drug cartels are, I guess, here in Connecticut, are the negotiators. So isn't that wonderful? But like I said, it's stuff we just got to keep an eye on. I am very positive that we are going to come out on the proper side of this. I agree with Greg in the fact that, yeah, they're going to try to steal. But I really think with all the efforts that everybody is putting in and keeping an eye on, and like I said, look for obscure laws, look for other things that make people accountable. And again, it's not over, on the November 6th, or as you said, in December or in the beginning of January. We have to keep fighting because we're fighting for our country. The other things that you can do is get 10 people and make sure they vote. That's very simple. Get 10 people and make sure they vote, because we need to have everyone voting. And I guess that's about it as far as my quick little wrap up.
Thanks,
Thank you
Linda.
so much, Steve and Raj. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Across the wire just came that 3 extra days of early voting will be given to Pennsylvania, thanks to the RNC lawsuit. So the RNC is working to do the best they can. So Greg, give us a little thumbs up.
I did. I gave a thumbs up. That's the first piece of good news I've heard.
All right. Well, I think there's going to be more out there. I got to tell you that I've been talking to the RNC, and they are working their butts off. And I'm getting a lot of emails and stuff from people I never did before, saying that they're winning lawsuits in certain places. We're not seeing them. Mississippi, Nevada. It's happening all over. Okay. Our next guest, Chris Widener, you're up.
Bye, Linda.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. Appreciate it. Folks, I'm going to take a little diversion from politics, but not really too much of a diversion from politics. I've been a Trump supporter since March of 2016, when I first predicted that he would win. In fact, a few years ago, I put on 7 events for President Trump and conservatives. We did 7 events with 45,000 people in attendance. I've been a candidate in the primaries for the U.S. Senate in Washington State, which is sort of a fool's errand for a Republican. And I believe in politics. I believe in being stewards of our country. America was here before we were here. America's going to be here after we're gone. And we are called to be stewards and to be involved in politics. One of the things that I do is I talk a lot to Christians about why they should get involved in politics and why we are called to be involved in politics, because of that whole idea of stewardship. But Steve was gracious enough to let me come on today and talk about a brand new book that I just wrote. I've written 25 books. That's what I do for a living. I write books and give speeches. My background is a motivational speaker. I'm in the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame, et cetera, et cetera. But God called me to write a book called The Coming American Revival. And it's out right now. It just came out. Our official launch is November 1st, but it's called The Coming American Revival, the biblical blueprint for igniting a nation's soul. And people can find it at comingamericanrevival.com or any of the online bookstores. But here's what I want to just challenge us to remember, is that ultimately we have got to see a revived church and a revival of faith in America, because our entire background, our entire history has been the history of a nation filled with people who come from the Judeo-Christian worldview. And what we've seen over the last 70 years is a large group of people leaving that traditional worldview where faith is important, and they have turned to a Marxist, secular, humanist, anti-capitalist, anti-God worldview. That's how half the country believes now. And I really believe, and it's what the book is about, is why we need religious revival in America. In fact, I can't remember who it was who said this. Somebody here, I'm sure, will remember who said this, is that the Constitution was written for a religious and moral people. And if you're not a religious or moral person, it doesn't really matter. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing amongst so many of the leaders in the Democratic Party and frankly, even some in the Republican Party, because we realize now it's not necessarily Republican versus Democrat or red versus blue, it's us versus them. So I wrote this book to talk about the spiritual state that we find ourselves in. In fact, many people who call themselves people of faith don't really apply it in their life. And they go to church or they go to synagogue or whatever, but when they leave church or synagogue, they basically live their lives exactly the same way as people who are not people of faith. And so I just really appreciate you, Steve, allowing me to be able to come on and share this with folks, because we need to understand President Trump, when he wins, and I'm declaring that by faith that he's going to win. It might take us a little longer to get there. We may not know it by November 6th, especially after listening to a lot of what's been said so far. But when he wins, he's only going to be there for 4 years. And the future of our country really, truly depends on people of faith. And it's one of the things I love that President Trump always says is that it's not about him, it's about us. That they're really not just after him, they're after us. And I really, really believe that. In fact, I used to live in Scottsdale, and when we left Scottsdale to move to Chattanooga, I had become friends with the rabbi of the fastest growing Orthodox synagogue in America. Became a dear, dear friend of mine, and he used to invite us over for Shabbat dinner. And the very last Shabbat dinner that we had, and he would have 40 people at these Shabbat dinners, people from all over the world. He asked me to say a few words, and I don't remember much of what I said that night, but I do remember saying this to this table full of Orthodox Jews. I said, you know, the Orthodox Jews and the Bible-believing Christians have got to stick together. Why? Because they're coming for both of us. And I believe that with all my heart, that what we represent stands in their way. When you think about Marxism, communism, they want to be God. The state is God, and they cannot have any other God competing. It's why when you find, these countries, first thing they try to do is they squelch religious belief, because they know that they can't have anybody with a higher devotion than those in the state. And I truly believe that that's exactly what's happening with the Democrat Party in America today. And I just wanted to remind us, and I would encourage you to remind others, that the most important thing we can be doing right now is to pray. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I want to get on the streets and work. I want to get on the phones and work. I want to get involved. Absolutely, 100%. That's what we do. It comes out of our faith that we do that, because we're stewards of this great country that God has given to us. So I would love it if you could take a look at comingamericanrevival.com, take a look at that book, and let other people know about it, so that we can see people reading a book, listening to the book, encouraged to reignite their own faith. It starts with each individual. Then it goes to churches and synagogues. Then it goes to our country. So I appreciate everything that everybody's doing. I know that we're all in this together. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. We are in this together. It's a battle for the ages, and it's a battle between good and evil. And,
Thank you very much.
And we're part of that. So thank you so much, everybody.
You got it. Christine Bousman, you're up.
Hey, it's Christine. So I'm sorry, you can buy his book, but I don't want you to read his book because I need you guys active right now. In Arizona, we have a problem, and we need everybody on here. I'm putting it in the chat. We have to cure the ballots. What's going on right now? Arizona is up 138,451 ballots, but in some of the counties, we are down where we should be. So in Arizona, we have a ballot curing process, right? So when the early ballots come in, if they can get kicked out for various reasons. And I perceive this as being a big problem. The last time we had 500,000 Republican ballots kicked out, 400,000 Democrat. And it can be your signature didn't match. It can be a valid reason. Your signature didn't match. You didn't sign something right, whatever. Democrats had a ground game and restored almost all of theirs. We did not. I think people just thought we lost and they gave up. So I'm putting it over in the chat. It's Arizona ballot cure. So what's happening in Arizona is suppression. Sometimes it's the cheat is suppression. So the main computer programmer at the Arizona Secretary of State's office who developed the voter registration system online quit last Monday. So that's a big deal. He quit or was fired. So all these problems we're having, the guy who's in charge of the voter registration computer system isn't there anymore, the developer, okay? Then we have little things like in Pima County, the recorder just shut down the early ballot request online portal. 10 days before, and she didn't tell anybody, tell the reporters or anybody, because she didn't think it was important. So now all the personnel had to get pulled and call 6,000 people. Were sent an email that they were trying to request an early ballot because we're doing this big early vote list. What they might not understand is they can still go vote early in person. We have a 2-page ballot. Okay, so there's a lot can go wrong with these ballots. So we have an easy app where anybody can sit and text the people with the cures and say, I want it back. But here's the problem. We should be getting this now. There one county, we did get a list of the ballots that need to be cured. And all of a sudden, we're not getting these lists anymore. And we don't think we're going to get them till the very end. And by law, we have 5 days. So this is for Kerry Lake and this is for Trump, right? We've got to get these ballots back in. But the minute we get the data, we're going to be ready to go. I'll put it again in the chat. I'll give it to Steve to put out if he can. And like I said, all we need you to do is text, and then we might need people to phone call. And if you're in Arizona, we have people will go to their door and tell them it's really, really, really important for you to say. So what it is you know, we want your vote to count. So if your vote gets kicked out, the state will just check the box and say we notified them, but we want to make sure you get notified. It's not some answer left on some machine, you know, thing on your machine left a message, that we get these people and make sure their vote counts, all the Republicans. So thanks, Stephen. You know, he was right about something. Greg was, but there's another thing. Phase 3 of this battle is going to be January 20th when Trump takes over. Remember the last time, remember 2016, all the riots, and they're going to start going after everybody. So
Thank you
can
very
follow
much.
my Substack mega briefs on that, and I'll be putting in some of your stuff.
So
So
we're
anyway,
lucky-
yeah, please help us. Help Kerry, help Trump in Arizona.
Thank you very much. We're lucky to have now a special guest, Mac Warner, West Virginia Secretary of State. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Steve. What I want people to be aware of is my ongoing efforts to have accountability from CISA, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, our 300 agencies, and social media. I've been on this fight now for 3.5 years, along with many of the rest of you. But in particular, CISA is one that, if you may recall, with Chris Krebs, when he was the head of it, called the 2020 election the most secure election ever. And they've never retracted that. They've never gone back and corrected that huge misstatement. And what I'm trying to do is get them to acknowledge that there were problems in the 2020 election, and specifically with regards to the Hunter Biden laptop. Everybody's familiar that that lie started with Tony Blinken, and then went to Mike Morrell, former CIA acting director. He got the 51 so-called intelligence experts to sign the letter. And then Biden used that in the last debate with Trump before the 2020 election. That's what the voters went to the polls with. That was a purposeful lie. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Disinformation is a purposeful lie. And that's what that was. And so these agencies need to be accountable to the American people, acknowledge that the mistakes were made, that they were part of it. The CIA fast-tracked the approval of that letter going out, so they were complicit. The FBI covered it up because they knew that Hunter Biden laptop was real. And then they went to social media. That's where it really gets convoluted. They went to social media. Mark Zuckerberg told him to suppress the story, and he did. He's acknowledged that. This isn't mine or your all's conjecture. This is under House Judiciary sworn testimony by Mike Morrell that they did it for the purpose of helping Biden and hurting Trump. That's why these agencies have no credibility with us. And so go to just this week, you had this video that the ODNI and others have said was fake, where was shown where ballots were being torn up in Pennsylvania. They claim that that's Russian disinformation. Well, why should we believe them about that if they've never gone back and acknowledged the problems with the Hunter Biden laptop? So I've written letters to each of these agencies calling for accountability, specifically before the 2020 election. This has been going on for years now. I've called them out in a number of different forums, Zoom meetings, and so forth. And they refuse to acknowledge it. And what they do is they say that if they acknowledge it, then Americans will lose credibility in those agencies. Well, I say it's exactly the opposite. They have to acknowledge the problems before we will ever again have any credibility. They will have any credibility with the American voters. So that's the first issue. You can find the letters that I've written on the West Virginia Secretary of State's website, wvsos.gov. The second thing I want to mention is elections, typically the ecosystem, if you will, are thought of in three parts. The pre-election, that would be the registration, cleaning out voter rolls, that sort of thing. Then election day is the second part. And then the third day is the canvassing or the auditing. Well, what has happened is the progressives have muddled that. They want to extend the voting earlier on. They want to accept ballots after the fact. They want to go with more mail-in voting, drop boxes, all that sort of thing. So they've muddled those. And in addition, technology has muddled those. We didn't used to all have cameras and on cell phones and so on. So that gets into the investigation part. And so this muddling is contrasted against what the legislatures have put into their legislation. Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution says the time, manner, and place of elections shall be left to the legislatures. So the point I want to make is in this muddling, when election officials get in there and overstep their bounds, and I'll cite the Pennsylvania example from 2020, where the Secretary of State entered into an agreement, a court approved agreement, and said, we're going to accept ballots 3 days after the election is over. I think that was outside her view. I think the term in the law is called ultra vires, stepped outside her authority to do that. That's happened in a number of different cases, Michigan accepting ballots without signatures and addresses and so on. That's what we should all be tuned into and call it out. If it's outside the law, it's a vote outside the law, I don't think it should be counted. So that's the second area. The final one is clarify our language. I mentioned disinformation. Disinformation is the easiest. That is an intentional lie that is put out. Misinformation is simply bad information. There was no necessarily intent behind it, but it's bad information. It's wrong information. That's misinformation. The third category that's more difficult, more nuanced, is malinformation. Malinformation might be correct information, but it's exaggerated or taken out of context to mislead people. We're not going to see a whole lot of that, but we on this call need to be articulate in what we are calling events that we see, call it out for what it is. I was part of the effort to help define these terms. I have a military background, and when you're not precise in military communications, people get killed. And so that's why when this first arose in 2016, the cybersecurity and being named, elections being named critical infrastructure, I said, we have to get our terminology right. So let's be precise in our use of the terminology. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Jenny Beth Martin, our last speaker, come on down.
Stand by. Jenny, go ahead and unmute if you would.
There we go. Thanks so much, Steve. And it was good to see Mac just now. He is such a great Secretary of State. With Tea Party Patriots Citizens Fund, we are working to get out the vote, and we're asking everyone to join our effort if you're in a swing state using the Numenar app to help reach your friends and family. President Trump and JD Vance, as they're going around to all the different rallies that they are doing, they are asking people to get your friends and family to vote. And our app will help you do that. It will allow you to match your contacts on your phone to the voter file. And for a while, we were matching to low propensity voters. But now that we're only 6 days out, we are matching to all Republican voters, whether they vote all the time or some of the time or rarely, and ask them and just make sure that we are reaching out to them if they have not already voted. And that's who it'll be matching up to. To learn how to do this, you can go to winelections.com. Again, that is winelections.com. We've got on-demand video webinar available for everyone to use. We also have a downloadable PDF. And then if you have any questions once you download the app and are using it, you can reach out to us at support@teapartypatriots.org. The left is doing this. When you go to Kamala Harris's volunteer website, they are urging people to reach out to their friends and family, and they let them know that they have an app available to do that, so you can figure out who the friends are that you know who haven't voted yet. We need to be doing the same thing. They did this in 2022, and the polling looked great going into election day. But then at the end of election day, when we looked at the results, we did not have as much of a gain in the House, and we did not gain the Senate. They also did it in 2020, and John Ossoff documented what he and his campaign did. They increased voter turnout by 3.8%. The Progressive Turnout Project has increased voter turnout using the same kind of technology and methodology. They've increased it by 9.2%. Now, that was kind of in an off-year election, but it still works, and we've got the technology, the training, and the support staff to help you do it. So if you go to winelections.com, it'll show you how to download the app. The app is Numenar. Set up an account, join our organizations, and then select help your friends vote, and then match contacts. It's pretty simple. We've got a text message you can send automatically, or once you see the list of people you know, then you can just reach out to them the way you normally would with text messaging and phone calls. And if you're seeing them in person, regular conversations with them. And so again, winelections.com. And Steve, I can cover other things like election integrity and what we're doing with poll watchers and other activities like that, especially in the state of Georgia. But at this point, you already had to be signed up to be a poll watcher in the state of Georgia. So we're now just making sure we get all the people who've signed up trained. Fulton County, Georgia will have 100% of the precincts covered, 100% for poll watching on election day. And the other metro Atlanta counties will have 100% or near 100%. So it's really good, but especially Fulton County, 100% coverage.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We'll get you on in a couple of weeks when we have a great win. I know we're going to win the Senate, the House, and the presidency. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. I want to thank Sam Anthony, yournews.com. Make sure you go to yournews.com. He has got everybody on there, all our podcasters. He's putting them on. He's got an investment opportunity for everybody. Any information you want, give it to me. Also, we started something new. Communication in this country, as Raj and I has always said, is kind of tough. So we are starting sternamericannews.com. Sign up for that. We're going to get out a newsletter. So you're going to get information from all the states. We're going to bring in all the states to let you know what's going on, because we hear from a lot of people, but we're not hearing anybody from Alaska. We're not hearing anything from Hawaii, from North Dakota, South Dakota, many states that we don't hear from. So we're going to try to get them on next time. Like I say, go to sternamericannews.com. This has taken us a huge amount of time to get 92 podcasters on. You can't even imagine what my staff has to go through to do this. I want to thank all my staff for helping us. It takes a lot of effort to get this thing done. In 2 weeks after all our wins, hopefully Greg is wrong and we'll win. But let's see what happens. And we will have some stars on. And also, if you have anybody you'd like to hear to get on, you know, sometimes we put the people on at the last minute. Sometimes people say they can't come on at the last minute. So this is a jockeying thing. Raj knows. He's texting me back and forth who's on next, because you never know who's forgot or didn't forget. But anyway, we want to thank everybody who's doing a sensational job. We have more people working now than ever before. Dan Schultz with Precinct Strategy, 14 years of trying to get people involved. It's amazing what he's done. Raj with all his organizations and Defend Florida, Defend the Union, doing a sensational job. During the hurricane, he was trying to get things done. So it's unbelievable. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending, and all the people all around the world who are listening. Thank you very much. Raj, give her a closing.
Thank you. And for the people watching on the live stream, again, want to acknowledge the incredible effort from Steve, his company, his team. So please make sure you connect with the flag shirt and Stern American. Parting thought, especially after we've had the conversation that we've had, and you're all leaders here on, oh, there we go. There's something else from Steve there. Please take attention.
Any information that they want to get, you can get me on my email, stern10@gmail. Give me a call. I answer everybody. And thank you again. Go ahead, Raj. Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. So please reach out to us. A couple of things before we leave here. Number one, given all of what we've just heard, there is no guarantee how we can communicate. You heard Steve talk about it earlier on. So I want to encourage you, if you want to solidify your communication portals with us on future calls, what happens after the election, because it's kind of a wild card right now, text the word defend to 91776 because our emails do get suppressed. You can also follow us on X there. The last thing I want to share with you, and this is something that I'd like you as leaders to noodle on next week. And I want to set this up with a story. This is going to be very short, about 2 minutes. We had Hurricane Helene ravage our nation. You heard General Flynn open our event up with that. And in North Carolina, the governor there did not take an appropriate position with the federal agencies. As a result, FEMA came in and FEMA did some things, some shenanigans, and there was a lot of, it just wasn't an optimal outcome in terms of recovery effort, and in part due to FEMA's bungling of the recovery effort. I want to contrast that governor and how he recognized his authority as a state leader, and this is going to be important next week, with Governor DeSantis. About a week to 10 days after Hurricane Helene, another hurricane rips through the country. This is Hurricane Milton, and that rips through Florida. And Governor DeSantis, because he understood his constitutional authority as a state leader relative to the federal government, he said the state is going to be running quarterback on the recovery effort. The federal agency is going to be in a support role to the state. The thing I want to contrast there for you is how one governor understood the state, his state constitutional authority, and pushed back when appropriate against the shenanigans from an inept federal government. So if you fast forward to next week and what is likely to happen as this thing gets sorted out, I'm wanting you to please become really clear on your authority as a state. This is going to come in, and the more you understand your state's authority, the more you can get your grassroots leaders, your county leaders, your state leaders, and your governor to position your state, if you're fortunate enough to have a strong leader, appropriate to what the federal government may or may not do. And as a homework, I'm giving you an assignment. I want you to Google Virginia and Kentucky Resolution 1798. Virginia and Kentucky Resolution 1798. I'm not going to tell you what it is. That's your homework to find out. But you're going to see a past precedent that took place in 1798 that is exactly what we're dealing with now. The only difference is Virginia and Kentucky took a assertive, strong stand, and the country benefited. And whether or not the states in the United States take a strong stand next week will determine what our path goes forward in the post-election aftermath. So please take that homework on, and we look forward to seeing you on the next call. Last thing is, a number of you are asking about the chat. How do you get the chat? So for those of you who are don't know how to get the chat, if you're on a Windows computer, on your chat, you'll see these 3 dots, and you can see it right here. And when you click on those 3 dots, you'll see an option to save the chat. That is how you save the chat. So I hope it's helpful. We're going to end the call. I'm going to leave it on for another minute for those of you who want to save the chat. But this call is officially over. Have a great, fantastic next few days, and look forward to victory next week.
And vote.
And vote. Don't just vote. Pull other people in your neighborhood and take them to vote as well. All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. We're going to end the call here in about 30 seconds. And I'll just leave that there. Let's see if there's anything else here. Since we got some airtime, go to theflagshirt.us. No, flagshirt.com, theflagshirt.com. I'm on an iPad. All right, I got you, Denise. I will email you the chat. I see your email address there. What is the assignment? The assignment is to Google Virginia and Kentucky Resolution 1798. Google Virginia Resolution 1798. When to vote? Vote right now. You heard General Flynn. He has already voted. Vote right now. You don't know what's going to happen next week. You got to get your vote in. All right. With that said, thank you, Steve. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye.